live, Luna. Get that, Luna?
Are we live?
Yep, we're live.
Omar, could you take the cover sheet off? I'm not able to see anyone. Assalamu alaikum, greetings, peace. My name is Luna Banuri, and we are live with the governor of Utah, Spencer Cox, and his staff. We are extremely heartened by his presence. We would like to start with a prayer. If I can invite Dr. Ahmed Salah to do a prayer for us to begin today.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. يا أيها الناس إنا خلقناكم من ذكر وأنثى وجعلناكم شعوبا وقبائل لتعارفوا إن أكرمكم عند الله أتقاكم إن الله عليم خبير. This is the verse from the Holy Quran. I'll read the English translation here. O you mankind, we have created you from a single pair of a male and female and made you into nations and tribes, so that you may get to know each other. Indeed, the noblest of you before Allah is the most righteous. Allah is the all-knower, all-aware. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Salah. We really appreciate. So Dr. Salah's wife told me last night that he's affectionately known as the BYU Imam. Thank you again.
Thank you.
So you always think that you would be prepared for this kind of day, and we're not. We are a small but a mighty team. So I apologize in advance for any mistakes or anything we make. Governor, a very, very warm welcome to you. You have engaged with our community on a regular basis, but we especially appreciate that within 100 days of your office not fully complete, you have come to engage with us again. You have visited our mosques, you have visited us personally, and we remain extremely thankful for that. The Utah Muslim Civic League, which started in 2018, but fully functional in 2019, held the first Muslim Day on the Hill last year, where about close to 250 people attended at the Capitol. The youngest participant was about 10 years old, and the oldest, and I think I'm going to skip the oldest, that might just age me here. So this brings me to an interesting fact that according to ISPU's research, and I do have the slides and everything ready, but too nervous to try putting them on right now and going wrong with it. So I'm just going to provide you numbers. The Muslim American makes up as the youngest faith group in the entire country. We have more young people, Muslims, identifying as Muslims than any other faith group. So, and we are growing. And amongst those who attended the last year's first Muslim Day on the Hill was a relatively recent immigrant from Morocco who knows how to get to your heart through your stomach and many other ways. And today, he is the first and only elected Muslim in the state of Utah. Let me introduce Mohammed Baed, who serves on the school board of District 6. We will hear more from him. And apart from Mohammed, at this point, we have about 6 appointed officials in different capacities. I am included in that list, and I have Mr. Maurer to thank for that. He basically pushed me on that path, and I think he might be regretting it already. We are right now, as a Muslim community in Utah, counted at about $60,000. We have, like I said, 1 elected official and 6 appointed. this number can be enhanced tremendously. And the reason being that we make about 1% of the state population and about 0.05 of the elected official. The reason this is important is that when we don't see people like us making decisions for us, the engagement is lowered. So we, as Utah Muslim Civic League, take pride that we are trying to build a pipeline of young individuals who will engage not only to run for office, but other service areas. You will also realize when you look around on the screen to see how diverse the Muslim population is. Just on the panel, we have Somali, Arab, Bosnian, Moroccan, Pakistani, Indian, and Tajikistani Americans. This makes me also acknowledge the fact that Muslims are the most, like I said, diverse faith, but we are a majority religion. 28% of us are Black Muslims and only 17% Arabs. 50% of us are native born, and remaining numbers are split between immigrants and reverts. And speaking of revert, we do have one amongst us today who we proudly have him on our board serving and understanding the issue that comes with reversion. As such, Muslims are anything but a monolith, and keeping in mind that we are supporting civic engagement in today amongst our community, let me also share research analysis to make you understand what the makeup of the political affiliation in Utah is of Muslims. In the state of Utah, we have surprisingly 34% Muslims registered as Republicans, as opposed to 11% nationally. So when we say we are different in Utah, we are. 34% registered Republicans, as opposed to 17% Democrats in the state of Utah. But please also understand that taking these two into account leaves out a very large number, which is 42% are independent, which that translates into is, although our numbers for registered voters have gone up compared from 2016 to 2020, at 2016 we were at about 68%, and now we are at 78%. But with the independent faction growing, the Muslim vote has to be earned. We do not vote in a single method. We do not just sort of vote with party lines. We are an issue-based community. So anybody running for office or engaging us has to keep in mind. And about 13% of us clearly indicate that we are not interested in voting. Many of us do not vote. And that's the sad part in Utah, where the aggregated voting was over 90%. We unfortunately voted at around 50% in the 2020 election. And when you try to understand the reasons of why people are not voting, there are two top reasons. One, people still feel very strongly that their vote does not matter, that they cannot make a change or a difference. And secondly, a clear indication of saying they do not see anybody that they feel they can support or can understand their platform to affiliate with. So those are the two major reasons where folks are not voting. And once again, as UMCL, we are constantly working on that aspect. What are the issues the American Muslims have on their mind? Economy and jobs, and institutionalized racism. If you look at the research, number one community targeted through institutional and direct racism, you will see that most of those are Muslims. And that remains one of the largest challenge. And this is a huge area of intervention, which we're still thriving in based on help with through our allies. We are interested in investing in policies that create a culture of anti-racism and bias and serve the greater cause of social justice in our communities. In Utah also, Muslims are concerned with the economy and the rebound after COVID-19. We are also a very hard to reach community as COVID vaccine is concerned. I do have here with us our sister from the Somali American community, who's also a registered nurse, and she can tell you the barriers that we currently face reaching our community to take the vaccines. I also want to acknowledge that we have had a lot of help from different government offices in many ways, and we are trying our best to help that our community get vaccinated. I think most of the people here would say they're not here to listen to me. So I would want to hand over the mic to the governor. But before I do, if I could say two things that you could take away from my rambling this morning are, number one, two things: invest and connect. Connect with us to understand our issues. We are not very good at putting our issues in through data or anything. And then invest in us to be able to understand what the community is made up of and issues, and meet us where we are. And when I do say that, I also do acknowledge that on your staff, people like Mike Maher, Jennifer Napier-Pierce, and Nubia Pena are the gold standard of how they make outreach in the community. Whereas I'm very thankful to all three of them and your team, I also invite you to keep this in mind, that you need to connect and invest in the Muslim community, because that's when your leadership will direct itself to the social justice and social harmony and peace in the state. With that, I welcome your comments, Governor, and we will go into question and answers right after that by the panel. Thank you.
Luna, thank you so very much. Ladies and gentlemen, it's an honor to be with you this morning. I'm actually coming to you from Cedar City. I'm in my rural office. We are the first administration to have an office elsewhere in the state, and I try to get down here at least once a month, which is always dangerous when the legislature is in session. So I won't be here long, just one day, and then we'll be back to Salt Lake. I want to thank you for inviting me to spend time with you this morning. Dr. Salah, thank you so much for that beautiful prayer in getting us started. Of course, Luna, thank you for your words, your kind words, and your very instructive words. Mohammed Bayed, congratulations on your election. We're so excited to have you in elected office, and for the example that you are setting for people across the state. I also want, as you have recognized my team, thank you, Luna. Having Mike Maurer here with us, who is a great friend of your community and works hard to help in our outreach and to fill our boards and commissions. As well as Nubia Pena, who is my senior advisor dealing with these very issues that you've talked about opportunity and inclusion, and making sure that we are working hard to overcome the limitations that have unfortunately bogged us down for far too long. And so I just want to take a few minutes today. I know we don't have much time together, but I want to, I'm just, again, so excited. I've had the opportunity to spend time with you over the past few years, to visit your mosques, to talk about the issues. And I hope you know how important Luna is to these conversations. But with 60,000 Utah Muslims, it is so important to have your voices on the Hill during this legislative session. We need your views on a range of issues. And so I'm grateful that you're taking the time and the initiative to get involved. Now, if you're looking for other opportunities, as was already mentioned, I would encourage you to explore service on a board or commission in our state. From suicide prevention to bail bonds to the Bear River, there are almost 400 boards and commissions in Utah, and we're always looking for people who are willing to fill those boards. So, and chances are there's at least one that really mirrors your interest and could use your expertise. Luna mentioned that she is one of those who is participating as an appointed member of the Utah Martin Luther King Jr. Human Rights Commission, and bring such a valuable perspective to this board. She can talk to you about the rewards of this kind of involvement and service. And the bottom line is we just need you. Our community's diversity adds to Utah's vibrancy. As we learn to respect and value our differences, that helps us work together in solving the state's most difficult and complicated problems. The most urgent and complex problems we've tackled during my first month is getting Utahns vaccinated. As was already mentioned, this is especially difficult as we reach out to our minority communities. But getting as many people vaccinated as quickly as possible is our #1 priority. So I would appreciate your help in getting your friends and neighbors who are eligible to sign up. The vaccine is safe and effective, and it's the way we get back to life as normal. And I, for one, am ready for some normalcy this year. You know, in a lot of ways, it has been such a dreary year, but one of the bright spots came last December when our community came together behind the Utah Racial Equity and Inclusion Compact. This pledge, as I hope you were all able to see, and has been signed by everyone in my cabinet and staff, essentially says that we as Utahns won't tolerate bigotry in any form. We recognize that systemic racism exists, and we're committed to creating policies and laws that promote inclusion, equity, and opportunity. And I want all of you to know that this is more than just aspirational, although being aspirational is very important, but in fact, increasing equity and opportunity is one of the top priorities of my administration's first 500 days. We are committed to increasing leadership opportunities for women and people of color, providing new upskilling resources for those who have historically been underrepresented in STEM and other areas, and then ensuring equity in educational funding and ensuring Utah's children have access to healthcare coverage. We're working hard to accomplish these goals, and we believe that in doing so, we will have a lasting and positive impact on our state. So again, thank you for your civic engagement and participation in the important work of governing. When we learn about each other, about different cultures and communities and needs, we can truly find common ground and improve the quality of life for all of us and create one Utah. We do that by getting proximate, by getting close to one another. And what I always find is that our similarities far outweigh our differences, and that our differences enhance our opportunities to work together. So again, thank you for giving me a few minutes, Luna. I'm happy to answer a few questions while we still have a little time.
Thank you, Governor. We really, really appreciate your words. The first and foremost, I would like to very quickly acknowledge our board, who spends their volunteer hours putting this organization together, and also the architect or the brainchild of Mr. Simnani, who's kindly joined us. I believe Mr. Simnani thought that we would have some teething issues. He probably didn't realize we'll go into teenagers, as soon as he launches us and have our tantrums and everything, and he puts up with us very kindly. I invite everybody, starting from the board, to introduce themselves and the community they represent. And I would appreciate if you would take all of 30 seconds so that we can get to everyone. Awais, would you please start?
Yeah, this is Awais Ahmed. I'm the chairman of the Utah Muslim Civic League. I've had different positions in the community, including Sunday school teacher, treasurer, and now I've been very happy to help found this Civic League. And we've been very thankful for your cooperation. And like Luna said, different from the nation, here we're registered as 34% Republican. So we're really, happy to, keep going with that work forward. And thank you for your partnership, Governor.
If I can call on Umar Rauf, without who this would not be happening today.
Hello, everyone. My name is Omar Rauf. I represent a lot of different groups. First generation, Utah, Muslim American. I'm just grateful for this opportunity to be here for our second annual Muslim Day. And hopefully we can continue to keep this going every year. So thank you.
Thank you, Umar. And Governor, we have also decided that in 2022, we will be holding the Muslim Day again on February 22nd, if you wanted to mark your calendars. Sharik, if I can have you.
Good morning. My name is Sharik Khan. I'm originally from Pakistan. I've been living in Utah since 1993. Been involved in many organizations. I'm also very fond of hunting, and Governor, I know that you're also very fond of hunting too. So I usually hunt in the Fairview area where you are from. So hopefully I'll run into you one of these days.
Thank you. Charles?
Good morning. I'm Charles Turner. I am a PhD candidate at the Department of Political Science at the University of Utah, and I represent the transplant Muslims. I'm originally from Virginia and moved here to start my PhD, and very happy to be here with you this morning, Governor.
Thank you. Haris Khan.
Good morning, everyone. I am also a board member with the UMCL. Lived most of my life in Utah, but born in Nigeria. Originally, my family's from Pakistan, but lived here over 30 years now and have really enjoyed my time in this great state. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you, Haris. Samir Mahij.
Good morning. My name is Samir Mehic. I'm a member of Bosnian community, and I would like to use this opportunity to thank Utah government and UMCL for last year serving in Remembrance Day proclamation, which was a huge thing for Bosnian community to show that their voices are heard.
Thank you, Samir. That concludes our board, so I'm going to call on other members. Of course, our founder, Mr. Simnani. Mr. Simnani, you're on mute. Still on mute. Sorry.
Okay, no. Is it better now? Okay. You can hear me now. Very well. Hey, thank you so much, Luna, and the rest of the board member of ACE. Governor, thank you so much for joining us. This is a great honor to have you on the second day of Utah Muslim Civic League in the state of Utah. We are honored to be members of this beautiful state, and I personally have been here over 51 years now. And you know, that's dating me, but that's just fine. But I think for most part, myself and many Muslim in the states owe their successes to the policies and the way that the government of Utah, especially in the recent past, Governor Herbert and yourself, and continuing his legacy and improving our economy and availability of opportunities for all of us in this state is very important, and we appreciate that very much. And thank you again for your comments, because that's very important in the very difficult times that we live now, and a lot of division, a lot of arguments, a lot of tension goes on. Your comments are very helpful, and I think I appreciate that, as well as thanks for the members of your administration, that they've been very cooperative and outstandingly supportive of the minorities in this state. And I think we appreciate this. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Simnani. Next, if I can have Devron. Devron also, I'm going to let him speak for him. Devron also, I'm going to let him speak for him. Devron.
Thank you very much, Luna, and thank you very much, Governor, and to all of you. My name is Davron, and I'm a director of Interfaith at Emerald Hills Institute. And Emerald Hills Institute has been pretty active in building a relationship with all communities, right, through interfaith and dialogue and art and culture, education. And we have been seeing so much passion from all communities, from everyone, and everybody's contribution much appreciated. And so much thanks to Luna for organizing this, and to all of you and government, thank you so much for your support.
Thank you. Next, if I can have Hafsa introduce herself.
Yeah, my name is Hafsa. I'm originally from Somalia, and I've been in this country for at least 20 years. I'm actually a nurse practitioner working with the pediatric clinic in South Summit Pediatrics, and I'm also part-time with the University of Utah Urgent Care. I'm very grateful for this opportunity, and my passion is women's health and also refugee health, where most of the health disparities are always happening. Thank you.
Thank you. And next, if I can call on Suhail Khan, and right after that, Mohammed Baid.
Hello, everyone. This is Suhail. I am a cardiologist based in Salt Lake City, Utah. I also have master's in healthcare management, so I'm very passionate about healthcare policy making as well as public health. And Mr. Governor, thank you so much. With Luna's help, we had Rich Saunders and Dan Hammond at our first in-person cardiovascular conference in the country. And our message was that in Utah, we can open back for business responsibly with 6 feet, distance and mask. And their lectures were very well received. And I thank you, Luna and Dan and Rich for doing that. Thank you.
Good morning, America. Look at that. This is the faces of America. My goodness. First of all, thank you so much, Governor, for joining us here. It means a lot to us. Taking time out of your busy schedule and being with our brothers and sisters here. Sincerely appreciate that. And Luna, words are not enough to express to you the hard work you put into gathering everyone here. And also for that generous introduction of me. My name is Mohammed Baid, and I'm originally from Morocco. Yes, some people like Moroccan food, like Luna, someday, and as you all know, I've been here in the US for about 20 years. So I am a father and a husband and a son and a brother, a veteran, immigrant, a Muslim, and my wife is LDS. And you can only imagine the melting pot I have within my family, and it makes me very happy and very proud to see that bridge being built. And as you all know as well, I've been elected to the Salt Lake City School Board, District 5. And it is one of the very diverse. I'm so honored to represent, the minorities and the marginalized and privileged communities as well. And, education is my passion. And as the first person in my family's generation to ever earn a bachelor's degree, and not only that, be the first in my village and 100-mile radius to earn a master's degree in the US. And so it means a lot to me, and you can imagine that. So with that said, I'm sure many of you will have so many questions for me about school system, especially with the school reopening. And so I look forward to learning from everyone here. And Governor Cox, thank you for exercising that veto pen. It means a lot in so many ways. Sincerely appreciate it.
Thank you. And as I see the clock ticking and our time almost coming to an end, I want to make sure that I introduce you to the folks who will meet you truly at the table, our young lot, our fellows, our youth. I'm going to start with Omar Khan, who actually joined just about yesterday and was thrown into the deep end. And if you can see here, his hair, you can probably tell why he's so disheveled. He gets to work with me. And after that, if I can have Abid and Abdikader and Amreen introduce themselves. And that would conclude our session with the governor. I want to be respectful of his time. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Omar Khan, and I am a University of Utah student. As Luna mentioned, I am a new fellow here at Utah Muslim Civic League, and I am happy to be working here.
Abdikader, go.
My name is Abdulkader Eften. I've been working with UMCL ever since like the pandemic started, so early February of last year. And I'm a graduate student at the University of Utah. I also went to school at SUU for my undergrad, so I totally understand why you're selling this. I love that place so much. So it's good to have you here. Thank you, Luna, and the board for putting this together.
It's great to see you again.
Yes.
Hey, Luna, can we just point out that Abdikar was an intern here in the governor's office, and now he's an employee here in the state elections office.
Absolutely.
So I think he's the first, are you the first in Muslim to work full-time? We've had other interns, but he'll be the first full-time employee. So we're thrilled to have him join the governor's office.
Absolutely. And we are so proud of him. And he doesn't know, but there'll be many more requests coming through him. We've planted him carefully. Thank you. Abid and Amreen, please.
Yeah, hi, I'm Abed. I'm the Community Organizing Fellow with Utah Muslim Civic League.
Hi, I'm Ambreen. I am a Pakistani immigrant, moved to Utah about 4 years ago, and I work at the University of Utah Huntsman as a genetic counselor. I'm super passionate about education and diversity and inclusion issues, and I'm really glad to be involved. Thank you for being here.
Governor, that sort of concludes our session. Thank you so much for coming in. We have a lot of folks watching live, a lot of them on the attendee side. I thank each one of you for making time to engage with us. We will see you very soon. Please give my best to the First Lady and remind her of a promise that she and I made. I will be following up with her, but we really appreciate your time here today.
She remembers, and
Thank you.
not often, Luna. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Governor.
So this concludes our session with the governor. And right after this, we are actually opening up the floor for community conversation. Those of you who did not have a chance to either introduce yourself or have any comments, we invite questions about UNCL, Muslim Day, civic engagement, and any issues that are on your mind. I'm going to request Umar Rauf to help me moderate this, and the questions can be directed to any one of us or about the legislator itself. We will try our best to answer those. And those of you on the attendee side, please use the chat or the Q&A box to drop your questions. We can bring you in as a panelist or unmute you as you would like. Let's begin. Thank you again for everyone being here.
Luna?
Absolutely.
If I may, I just want to thank you and Obeys, both of you and board, to arrange this conversation. It was very important. I mean, these are the steps that it takes in order to be present and be at the table on issues, on opportunities, and on sometimes with the problems that we may run into. So we have a presence, and I think you guys have done a wonderful, great job. Thank you to all of you, and I wish I could participate more in your efforts and so on. And the second thing I would want to encourage all of you, especially the young people that you are, to participate in the 2022 election is around the corner. And every one of you that you either yourself or you know people that are capable of, that are interested in running, I think you've got to encourage them to the best possible way. And I would be happy to help them as well. And I think this is something that you have started. This is a seed that you have planted, and I think it's bringing fruits now. And I really congratulate all of you, and I hope wish you success. Thank you for everything that you are doing. Appreciate that.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Simnani, Mr. Simnani. I would also send you the legislations that we are following. We expect about 10 legislators to attend today's session after this conversation. We have folks coming in and educating our community. There are a set of about 15 to 20 bills that we have been monitoring, and most of the legislators who are sponsoring them are coming to speak with us. We also have the opportunity to meet with the Lieutenant Governor at the end of the day. Because it's in person and up at the Capitol, we've had to keep our numbers extremely low because of COVID-19, but we do feel that we are extremely blessed to have these opportunities from the elected officials to opening their doors and hearts to us. And we are very careful in how and where we engage them and ask for help.
One other thing I would like to point out is the governor mentioned, and I don't want to see it forgotten here or fall through the cracks, is there are over 400 board appointments, 400 board appointments in different areas that are available, and they're trying to fill those board appointments. I highly recommend that we get a copy of that list of all the board appointments that are available and disseminate that among our our members, and let's see who's interested in what. It's from medicine to engineering to land issue to legal issues, legislative, a lot of different opportunities, and there are a lot of expertise here that I can see in our community that they should apply for. And you'd be surprised how nicely they would, most likely they're going to appoint you because they're really looking for those people. And I think that's a great opportunity. We don't want to miss on that. And that's great. So go ahead. I'm going to be quiet for a while. Go ahead.
Thank you. Omar, please take it away. And
yeah, we have a hand raised from our very own Imam Yasser. So I'd like to pass the mic over to him.
Yeah, good morning, everybody. I had a slight oversight. I guess I overlooked the fact that it was virtual because the link was embedded down in the ethos of the details. But nevertheless, I think one of the things I wanted to, everybody can hear me clearly? Okay. One of the things I wanted to bring to the table, if not for operational execution this year, maybe perhaps at least table it for consideration in the next year, is to start developing a list of textbooks or books that are truly representing the Islamic faith from an American perspective, like Dr. Craig Considine's book, The Humanity of Muhammad, peace be upon him, which we launched with Emerald Hills Institute. Probably Davran knows about that, with Dr. Mehmet Sawyer. And then other books that talked about slavery and the Muslim impact and contribution in the early Americas in the 1500s. So if we have those books as what they call selected reading materials for all the other departments in Utah, like, departments that are struggling with diversification and racial justice, especially now, like the police departments, because one of the things that we have been lacking as a Muslim community in the United States is to take the spearheading approach on training people about Muslim character, Muslim integrity, Muslim history, and that has been left, with a vacuum, and Islamophobic sources have taken over. And my brother actually works for the Mobile, Alabama Water Commission. He's a director there of IT, and he goes to these training sessions, and he tells me that I wish, I could invite you there to give some clearing of these, things that they discuss about Muslim. He says everything that I hear in my training is Islamophobic. So if we can take charge of that, I think that will help us a lot.
absolutely. I think that is such a creative and a pertinent advice. We will definitely start making lists.
And the sources that we need to focus on are sources that are not proselytizing, sources that are basically from authors that are non-Muslims, that give a very candid and fair view of the Islamic faith, right? I mean, this is not a seminary. I mean, I'm not recommending books of seminary. I'm recommending books of what they call humanitarian, delivery and accommodation. So I have some books that I can recommend, but I think that's one thing I wanted to bring to the forefront.
Thank you so much. Next, we have
another. Oh, I was just going to, Brother Ghulam Hasnan has his hand raised. Welcome you to share your comments or questions.
Assalamu alaikum, brothers and sisters. My name is Ghulam Hasnan. I'm originally from India. Been here for very many years. So I don't want to mention how old I am, but I'm actually 74. I'll be 70. I'm 74 years old. And I don't want to take too much of your time. I just wanted to take a few minutes to let you know that I operate a refugee services agency called Solek American Refugee Services. It's been in operation since 2006. And we target those folks who don't speak English much at all. And also they do not know their way around our system. So primarily we're serving Somalis and to some degree Iraqis, Afghans, and Iranians as well. And thank you for your time.
Thank you for introducing yourself. The next hand raised is Mohammed Bey.
Hi, everyone again. A long time no see. All right, first, one thing I did notice, like when going to a public library, at the children's section, there are literally speaking about 20 books about Arabic or Islam or so. I mean, how wonderful would it be if we were to have some more books in there, especially, let's say, for example, about Ramadan or Hajj or so. And when teachers are teaching about that, they can refer the students out there. Because I go to my kids' school and I volunteer in there and I teach them about, you know, the culture of the Arab world, teach them about, you know, some Arabics and so. And it is mind-boggling when I go there, and there is not many books really to bring. The other thing too is I really appreciate, you know, if we can take care of that, and if I can do anything as well from my side, you know, if it needs to be ordered from Morocco, so be it. We'll get them over here. Do you guys pay for shipping? No, I'm just kidding. There is one more thing is Ghulam Hussaini, please, when you get a chance, I would love to get in touch with you because, you know, that's within the education perspective. So we can see what we can do in that, especially, you know, a lot of our students are out there at school and they do not feel home. They do not feel they belong, and we need to make sure we find a way that they feel that there is someone in there who speaks their language and can be there to represent them. So please, and everyone, Luna, feel free to share my phone number. Text is the best way to get a hold of me, okay? If you send an email, good luck. Hopefully I can get to it someday. But thank you though for letting me ask this question. Thank you.
So yeah, I'd like to say something. So first of all, again, you know, thank you, Luna. Thank you, the board members, and thank you, everyone here. The dynamic that I've seen in working, you know, over 20 years with this community is that you guys are all very important advocates. So even while we have a good turnout today with the people that we have on and the accessibility and the amount of people that we have in the community, we should have more people. So our community, you know, isn't as engaged with just giving them emails or text messages. We need all of you guys to be advocates in your family, in your friends. Once you come on here and see these things, you need to make sure that we bring people on. And I mean, everybody here is, I mean, these kind of events, they take a lot more time to put on and engage these individuals. So we need to maximize the attendance and the engagement. And thank you, everyone, again, for your hard work. And thank you, you know, Mr. Somnani, not for just for the many different things that you're helping us with, and especially your mentorship and bandwidth here.
Appreciate it. Thank you so much. You know, this is a good example of what we can do. And I tell you, if it wasn't, like Ove says, if it wasn't for our numbers, we don't get the attention. And the governor of Utah is joining us. It's simply because we have numbers, because we are together, we look at the issues, we are participating. And I think this is absolutely necessary, and we have to expand it, as he said. There is a lot of opportunities that we have in the future, and we should take advantage of it. You're right.
Thank you. I do encourage all the youth, and I know a lot of you have been involved in different political campaigns and volunteer and service work. Please engage with us, ask us questions. How can we help you all? And if we are going to talk about mentorship, I cannot not mention Baman Bakhtiari, who's joined us. He has always been a pillar of strength and full of advice for our community. Thank you, Baman.
You're on mute. You're on mute.
Sorry about that. I want to congratulate you, Luna and Waze, for the fantastic job you've done
everywhere I go, I hear about the good work that you guys are all doing. And Mr. Semnani rightfully mentioned that the collective action is really what matters. And even though we are all Muslims from different countries, we, in our heart, we need to kind of civically engage. And I'm very proud of what Luna has done and Oveis and all the board members. I hear so many good things from different people in the state, university, colleges about all the good work. So I want to encourage you to attract more students as fellows and interns. And also, I'm always excited to hear ideas from Oveis. I hear he's working on a garden, sustainable economy, climate change garden for the Khadija Mosque. And I did mention this to a couple of my colleagues, and they were very excited about all the good works you're doing, climate change, community, and environmental science is an incredibly important civic engagement for the Utah Muslim Civic League. So I want to encourage you, and I'm here to help you in any way I can.
Thank you, Dr. Bakhtiari. I didn't see you sneak in, and I also want to say, so Dr. Bakhtiari runs the Baskerville Institute, and he's been a great mentor of me personally and the organization. And I think the good thing that we can have when we have these events is that you see a lot of people here with different backgrounds and access to mentorship. I remember when I was growing up, or some of the folks in my age group, we didn't know these kind of folks were available in our community. So, I mean, and they are very generous with their time and connections and resources. So, I mean, thank you very much. And he's running the Baskerville Institute, which is also, you guys can look it up, and is a great partner of ours.
Thank you. I wanted to kind of rope in Abdikader. How does it feel to be working for the Lieutenant Governor office? That must be amazing. Have you started yet?
So I just put in my 2 weeks in my current job, and I start in 2 weeks, but I'm excited for it, and I'm just thankful for the opportunity to to be like one of the few to represent people of color in the office. So I know it's a different scene, and so I'm looking forward to that. And also I know Imam, he made a good point about sharing lectures, and so if he wants, I have like a whole list of like 8 pages long of like different textbooks that relation to Muslim history that I can share with him, and we can share that on. So I have a whole page document I can share with Luna, and Luna can share that with him. So I'm more than happy to do that. But I'm excited to work with the Lieutenant Governor's office. I'm looking forward to it. Hopefully, it's be a good opportunity for me. But thanks to UMCL and Luna for helping me get to that path. And I've learned along the way this whole year. It's been a lot of demise and a lot of craziness, but this is the good that came out of it. And alhamdulillah, I'm grateful for that too.
Thank you, Abdikader. Dr. Salah, I know that you work mostly on the other side of the valley and deal with a lot of young folks over there. What kind of barriers do you see for the young folks in our community in accessing to civic engagement?
I appreciate that, Luna, and thank you again for inviting me. You guys hear me okay? I had a kind of connection difficulty during the introduction time. I had to jump back and forth between the computer and the phone here. But yeah, this other side of the valley, the better side of the valley, the whole, of course, valley is great, and we're excited to be part of it since I think 2002 when I first came here. I think there's nothing different between here and there. There's no boundaries, if you will, and I think our young members, especially at BYU, this is as you introduced us earlier. I serve as the Muslim student imam at BYU and ecclesiastical leader there. We have great students. Again, there are no boundaries, there are no borders, if you will. It's the bridging the gap that we should all be partners of. We're all ambassadors of our culture, our religion. We're not different. We're part of the fabric of the state of Utah and the country. And I think the religious, if there's one point I want to share here is, and that's what I've heard in the past 19 years, is the religious speech here that kind of promotes all the values of our religion that we all know, and I'm not sitting here to teach us about, but it's that speech that helps the young members of our community, second generations, and further, just to share all of our culture and represent our religion, bridge the gap. There is a gap, and those of us that have lived here since or through September 11th know what happened what happened then. And if there's one not negative thing that happened after September 11th, is actually opened the door for the non-Muslim brothers and sisters and friends and neighbors and colleagues to try to learn more about Islam, try to learn more about us and the community. And I personally have seen over the past 19 years significant change in that, closing the gap. The bridge is there, and we're all helping to build it. I'm a civil engineer, so I'll talk about bridges a little bit. So thank you.
And Dr. Salah, also thank you very much for lending your daughter as an intern to Utah Muslim Civic League this summer. She was great. Keep them coming, the other students as well. Speaking of students, I want to rope in Laiba and Abid, who've been civically engaged. I think Laiba has worked on multiple campaigns. Abid is a mastermind behind policy, and it's sort of outlay in the community. If they could speak in terms of youth and their engagement into the civic process. And right after both of them, if I can invite Hafsa and Dr. Suhail to speak about public health issues in our community. What are the major barriers? Our next session starts at 10, so we have about 7 minutes, and anybody having any other questions, comments, please raise your hand.
I guess I'll go first. Well, fortunately, living in Salt Lake, there's a lot of opportunities for people on the younger side to get involved. When I started out wanting politics and wanting to get involved in civic things, a lot of people were really accommodating. People were happy to give me internships or happy to give me fellowships, get me involved, teach me the ropes. I had a lot of people who stepped up, were ready to mentor me and get me more opportunities so I can kind of learn everything. I was pretty fortunate.
Yeah, I mean, I'd also echo the same thing. Also, I'm getting an echo from someone's mic, I assume. But yeah, I'd echo the same thing. You know, I've had a lot of opportunity, especially, you know, in the Salt Lake area. When I've reached out, people have always been willing to help. And, you know, the UMCL opportunity kind of came to me, and that was really fantastic. But I mean, really what I want to say is that our project at UMCL these days is really one about building infrastructure. You know, like there's a great Muslim community that exists in Utah, but you know, we don't. A lot of the time, we just don't have the pre-existing connections and that sort of thing. And that's why UMCL's project is iterative, right? Every year we get a little better, we do a little more because we're forming those connections, relationships with small businesses, with elected officials, with mosques, with whoever it may be. And so, yeah, I mean, really, it's a process of continuously building on itself and trying to be better than we were before.
Thank you, Abid. Suhail and Hafsa, if you guys have any comment in terms of the barriers to public health related issues that you guys see and you want to speak about.
So I'll go first. Working for the University of Utah Urgent Care, I always see so much of the health disparities among Muslims and also refugee Muslims. I'll give you an example. Last week, I had a patient who came in with chronic cough. Looking at his health history, he kept being sent for chest x-rays and also COVID testing, and all will come back negative. I mean, it took, luckily I spoke the language, which was Swahili. I sat down with him and I kind of went all through his health history, came to find out he had an acid reflux. So those kind of things that I always see in the healthcare field, usually it's like the health literacy, language barrier, access to healthcare. There's so many things. So even like a provider taking time to get to know the patient, or even finding an interpreter that will go over the health of that person. So we do see a lot of health disparities in the refugee community.
Thank you, Hafsa. Dr. Sohail, I know that you have made recommendations and comments about how with COVID-19, all the other health disparities have been put on a back burner. I'd love to get your comment incorporated if you want to unmute yourself.
Yeah, sorry, Luna, I was on the phone call. Yeah, so that's something that we talked about early when the COVID-19 started, that it is affecting the minorities the most, the Black community, the African American community, refugees, because of poverty and lack of access to health. The one point that I made last Saturday at our meeting was somehow we have this top-down approach in terms of COVID-19 vaccination, because this is the biggest healthcare crisis that we have right now. And the only way that we can get out of this pandemic, where we can get our lives back on track, where we can get our economy back on track. And again, we always like forget about the economy, but the lack of job, you know, it has a very long-term psychological impact on the families. Is we have to be very aggressive with COVID-19 vaccination. And the one thing that I recommended, that we should learn from a country like Israel, where they are able to vaccinate more than 60% of population already. You know, they have this approach that they are even giving COVID-19 vaccine at the bar. I'm not saying we should do that, but the problem that I see here, that in Utah, if we have a patient who's 65 years old, healthy, he's hiking every day, you know, compared to 40 years old lady with rheumatoid arthritis, end-stage lung disease on 3 liters of oxygen, the common sense would be this 40 years old is at the more risk of dying because of COVID-19 compared to a healthy 65 years old guy. But we are going by this checklist by checklist. The one thing that I recommended, that we should let the healthcare provider decide who to vaccinate. If we have the primary care clinic have access to these vaccines, or Mr. Samnani is running his own like free clinics, if somehow we can get access to that. And then the thing is, if we don't vaccinate our refugee community, and if this virus lingers on for a long time, it is going to mutate. You know, we are not going to get out of this pandemic, you know. So that's something we need to be very, very aggressive. And I'm sure we have healthcare providers in this panel. That's something we need to work together with healthcare policymakers. And that's something Mr. Rich Saunders was very excited to work with us. And again, Luna has my number. If you guys have any comments, or you know, somehow we can work together, I'm more than willing to be there.
Thank you, Dr. Sohail, and you've provided me the perfect opportunity to let the community know that we do have a public health committee under UMCL, and we have just been approved by the state health department to run 2 COVID vaccination clinics. We will be running one at the Khadija Mosque, and the second location is under discussion, but most likely it's going to be at one of the most accessible points that we can find in the city. And we're hoping to continuing providing that information. We are going to have folks who will interpret and register our community members ourselves. Hafsa is very, very active in helping us put that together. Dr. Sohail is also on the committee. It is 10:01. We need to get on to our next session, but I have seen Al Khalifa's hand raised, so I'm going to take that as a last comment question.
Hi, good evening or good morning. I wanted to mention that there were two important, I'm an advocate within the refugee community, and I wanted to mention two bills. Can you hear me okay? Yeah. Okay. There's two bills that's under process, and one is under, one's going to be discussed further. It's been passed on to the Senate. It's called the Civics Education Amendments. It's been passed, it's been written by Representative Dan Johnson. It pertains to, let me pull it up real quick. It pertains to civic engagement, which is, long story short, it's the citizenship, United States Citizenship and Immigration Services. What they're trying to do is reduce the amount of questions on there from 50 down, well, it's gonna remain 50, but it's going to be 50 out of 35 questions will be able to be, it's gonna be a minimum 35 will pass. And then that's bill, it's 0124. If anybody wants to get in touch with him or the committee that they're running tomorrow, it's Representative Dan Johnson, and the committee that they're running is going to be a Senate committee that's going to be, should I give you the telephone number for him or his email?
We got you. We have this bill on our tracker. Thank you
You
so
do?
much for
Okay.
actually bringing this up and
Okay.
helping me segue into our next session, which
Okay.
is exactly about, talking about how do bills run. I can't even kind of summarize the session because both the speakers that we have do such an amazing job. They will mesmerize you of encouragement as well as information. Let me please ask Haris to help me introduce our ally, Shireen Gurbani, as well as Dr. Joel Arvizo Zawala. He is a researcher with the Commission on Criminal Justice, a curriculum specialist, a researcher with Utah Division of Multicultural Affairs, and serves as the Executive Director of Resilient Education, a private consulting firm specializing in equity, inclusion, diversity, and social work. They are Indigenous, Latinx, and have called Utah their home in their entire life. They live in Salt Lake City with their father and enjoy reading, gardening, and cooking. Dr. Joel, welcome, and I apologize for using the wrong pronoun in the beginning. Please forgive me. Haris, if you would introduce Shireen and we'll get straight into the session.
Sorry, guys, I was unmuting. Hey, good morning. I have the honor, and I'm very excited to introduce Shireen Gurbani. Shireen was our Salt Lake City Council member. She expressed a great vision of improving mass transit, reforming the criminal justice system, and becoming a renewable energy leader. In fact, she introduced and successfully approved a bill to make Salt Lake City, Salt Lake County 100% renewable. And more importantly, she's been a very strong advocate for the Utah Muslim Civic League and also the Utah Muslim community at large. With that being said, thank you, Shireen, for joining us today, and appreciate all your thoughts.
Gurbani, if I may, I just have to apologize very sincerely. Congratulations for your the work that you've done. I have to apologize. I've got a 10 o'clock appointment. I have to leave, but we'll visit later on. Thank you, everybody.
Sounds good.
It was a
Thank
pleasure
you
to
for
see
having
you.
me today. Nice to see you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Dr. Joel, would you like to share your screen and get us started?
Absolutely. And Luna, thank you so much for the invitation today. I'm very excited to be here with all of you to share this very important information. Give me just a moment while I set up my screen. All right. So what I want to do today with all of you and for all of you is provide you with an overview of how the legislative process works. And so as you can see on the screen here, I have multiple tabs in my browser that I'll be showing you today, as well as information that's specific to the Utah Commission on Criminal and Juvenile Justice and the work that we do to track criminal justice legislation specifically. So when you are beginning your journey as a legislative analyst, tracker, researcher, you really want to start on this webpage, which is le.utah.gov. This is the home to all the information that you're going to need in order to have not only a successful legislative session, but also to make sure that you have access to the information that happens before the legislative session. It's really important that people understand that the origin of bills isn't during the session for the most part. It is often happens during the time period before the legislative session, during what we call the interim session. And so when you go to le.utah.gov, if you are interested in tracking these bills, you want to make sure to go ahead and create an account for yourself. So as you can see, I've used my utah.gov email address as an employee of the state. You can use your personal email address if you need to. Doesn't matter. All you have to do is click on the link that's going to be located up here in the upper right-hand corner, and you will register yourself. You'll go into your email to confirm that you are registering at le.utah.gov, and then you'll have an account created for yourself, which basically will last as long as you need it to. So when we look at bills, we really want to first take a look at committees. So here on the le.utah or the Utah State Legislature website, you want to go ahead and click over here on committees, okay? And when you do so, you will see some options over here to the left. You will have the year. You'll be able to type, okay, maybe select specific types of committees. Here, let's say, for example, we're interested in interim committees. That'll give you a list of all the committees that are meeting in between the legislative sessions of each year. And this list will usually grow after the legislative session and as we enter summer and fall. You'll also want to make sure that you take a look at, just all the committees. So depending on your specific area of interest, there's committees for pretty much everything legal and criminal or legal and legislative related in the state. Many of the committees that I follow as a legislative tracker for CCJJ, like I mentioned earlier, involve criminal justice issues. And so some of the committees of particular importance to me include the Executive Offices and Criminal Justice Appropriations Subcommittee. It also includes the House Judiciary Committee, the House Law Enforcement and Criminal Justice Committee. And so always keep in mind, as I mentioned earlier, the origin of the bill often is before the legislative session. This is where legislators and key stakeholders, such as the individuals who have seats in these committees, meet to discuss bills that are necessary for the upcoming session. So you really want to make sure that you follow these interim sessions or look at these committees to get a sense of, what are they introducing? What are some of the topics of interest to them? And particularly for this group, what's some potential legislation that's related to the Muslim community here in Utah? In order to find your legislator, you want to go ahead and from le.utah.gov, you're going to click on Home, Legislators, and then District Maps. And then here is where you will enter your street address and your zip code, and then you'll click Find, okay? So for example, we'll go ahead and enter the zip code where I live and see if we can find any information there. All right, so what we'll do, so typically it does require that you use, your full address, but basically after you click Find, it should direct you exactly to to the individuals who are elected to represent you. These will include your state representative as well as your state senator. So this is a really easy way to get information for your elected officials. You can download it, save it to your email, etc., and then you can have that on hand when necessary. The next thing that I want to show you is where to find bills. So from the state legislature website, you'll go to Home, Bills, and then in this particular case, we're looking at the 2021 general session. And here you'll have all the bills based on bill number. Typically, bill numbers that are lower have originated possibly during the interim session or earlier on in the legislative session. And then bills that have a higher number are bills that are more recent. So let's go ahead and take a look at some of these more recent House bills, which more than likely came out within the past week, week and a half. So here we have HB 350, Mental Health Records Confidentiality Amendments. We have HB 351, Parental Leave Amendments, and etc. And so here is where you can get some basic information on bills. So let's go ahead and take a look at, Qualified Immunity Amendments, HB 367. So when you click on the bill, it'll bring you to this page where you'll have an opportunity to take a look at the actual bill information. So you have the long title, general description, the provisions, which are basically the things that the bill is targeting, the things that it wants to change, the things that it's introducing. That's what it means by provisions. And so this will give you a chance to take a look at all the bills. One thing that's, or all the bill information, excuse me. One of the things that's really important is this numbering system over here. Oftentimes when you're in committee hearings or on the House floor or Senate floor and listening in or attending as a guest from the public, you'll want to keep track of these particular lines, because oftentimes, as these underlined sections indicate, these are additions to maybe a previous law, for example. And so paying attention to these lines is a really great way to hone in on some of the specifics of a bill, especially if they mention them during a committee meeting or the House and Senate floor meeting. You can also download these as a printer-friendly PDF. And then some other important information is located over here. This is where you'll see the primary sponsor of the bill. And then if the primary sponsor is a Utah State representative, then that means it will be a House bill. And then it will have a floor sponsor who's a senator once it gets to the Senate floor, and if it gets to the Senate floor. You'll have information regarding the drafting attorney and the fiscal analyst, especially if there's money being attached to this particular bill. Here, you'll get the chance to click on either stop tracking or track this, and it'll add it to your account that you created earlier at le.utah.gov. We have the bill text here and then just related documents. This is an important section as well. This will give you information regarding the last action. So it looks like the last action on this bill was on the 18th of February, just last week, and the fiscal note, or the monies attached to this bill, were sent back to the sponsor. Its last location was in the House Rules Committee. So this means that it's integrated into the Utah State House of Representatives, or the House floor, okay? And so this is just general information about the bills that's really easy to find. Another section that I want to show you, which is related to the committees. So here is the House Law Enforcement and Criminal Justice Committee for 2021. Here you will see their committee meeting times located to the left. Here you will have access to their agenda, minutes with audio links, for example, and the audio video. And then here is a really important list where you'll actually get to see all of the bills that they're going to be introducing, or more than likely speaking to, in this particular committee meeting. Last but not least, another piece of important information is the committee members. So here in this particular committee, the House Law Enforcement and Criminal Justice Committee, you will see all the individuals who are part of this committee listed here. And if you click on their names, so typically you'll be able to click on this information, and then you'll have some information regarding, there we go. It'll take you directly to the representatives page, and you can learn a little bit about these individuals, okay? One thing to particularly note is, depending on who your elected representative or senator is, you'll want to see if they're members of committees that are of interest to you, so that as you speak to them or reach out to them for communication regarding the things that are important to you, you'll also know which committees they sit on. So as I mentioned earlier, when you create an account with the Utah State Legislature, this is what it looks like from the inside. So this is my account, as I mentioned earlier. And here you'll see that I'm currently tracking 229 bills that are criminal justice related. And you'll also be able to see, if you click on this link here, it'll show you a list of bills that are on the agenda for the following day, typically, or the current day. And so here you can see that there are 7 bills that I'm tracking that are on agendas, either for tomorrow morning, or there were a few bills that were on the agenda for this afternoon, but it looks like those have been removed, or they'll be heard at a different time. And then this is really great because you can also click on the bill information here. You can click on the committee information here, and then you can download the agenda just by clicking on the agenda. The last piece of information that I'll share with all of you today is how to successfully track bills. So I want to show you our legislative tracker for CCJJ. One of the things that's really, a number of things that are important to us at CCJJ, not only are criminal justice related bills, but the information connected to them. And so as a potential legislative tracker, whether you're doing this individually or maybe for an organization, you'll want to make sure that you have key information here. And so, make sure that you have, the floor sponsor, overview of the bill, the general provisions, any tracking notes or information from meetings. And then CCJJ, for example, we have a number of subcommissions and subcouncils who provide position statements on certain bills. And so this is just a really great way to keep track of all the information related to the legislative session. So really encourage you to create a spreadsheet where you can house that and keep it in a place to inform the communities that you serve. So that is my presentation for today.
Thank you so much. I have seen you present this before, and I have not seen anybody do it better than you do. I hope this information is useful to our community members who can find ways to engage. And speaking of engagement, I do invite Shireen to talk to us about how should we get involved. I know that you know, and you can help us get there.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. It's so wonderful to see many friendly faces and new faces. Thank you for being on this call, and thank you for the work that the Civic League is doing to really engage and break down barriers, educate, and connect people. So the first thing that I think is always important to remind individuals is that anyone in elected office works for you. They are there to advocate, to work on, to support initiatives that you care about, and they should truly be accessible to you. So some things to consider at the very beginning are that, especially now during the legislative session, all eyes are on our state capitol, and so much activity happens there in such a compressed period of time. So 45 days. Certainly there are meetings outside of that, but we really pay attention as a state when we're in session, and that's in this time period right now. This is really a difficult time for your representatives and your representative or your state senator to get to know you. But every other day of the year is a great time to send an email, say, hi, I'm Shireen, I'm your constituent. I live in your community, and I would love the opportunity to set up a phone call, make sure that you have my email information, and to get on your radar. Because when we see bills that are detrimental to the immigrant community, to the Muslim community, to communities that we care about, it's often too late to really get into the conversation. Those conversations, that trust building and that knowledge and awareness needs to be built before. So really take the opportunity to reach out to your state senator, to your representative, and to get connected outside of the session. Certainly, if you see bills that are coming up now that you're concerned about, I encourage you to send those emails, to call them. But this is a period of time when they are inundated by messages, by requests for meetings. And really, outside of this 45-day period is a great time to establish those relationships with your state representative and state senator. I would also suggest that it's very important that we're paying attention to what's happening at our other levels of government, including your school board. I know we have a school board representative with us today. Your state school board, where frankly, a lot of decisions are made about what happens in the classrooms across the state that may directly impact our communities in very specific ways. Your city council person, truly at that level, that person should have your phone number and you should be able to have theirs. So getting those connections at the local level is very important as well. Once we get to the county, in Salt Lake County, I can tell you that it is, having served at large, having served over 1 million Utahns, it can be difficult to track all of that information and to get back with people, but it was something that I prioritized, and I do think it's an expectation that you should have for your county representatives. And I think then from there are so many opportunities at the school sometimes, and certainly at the city and at the county level, to get involved in committees and efforts that are happening across all different sectors of governance and our lives here in Utah. So that's everything from parks to arts and culture to criminal justice. All of those areas of our government, many decisions are made and many decisions are developed at the level of participation that you can get involved in today. So there are people that are, now my cat is screaming. This is a very Zoom situation, right? You have the ability to get on these committees if you have any questions about them, and I will drop some links in the chat on how to find especially our county opportunities to get involved. But there are so many ways, if you are interested in serving your community, that you can do that really today, starting today. So just in summary, let me remind you that every individual in office works for you and that it is completely your expectation should be that you can have that open dialogue, get meetings with them. And I want to talk about how to communicate sort of at different levels. At the city, county, at your school board level, emails, phone calls are certainly appropriate. I find emails to be very effective at that level. When you move to your federal representative, so your representative in Congress or your your senators, your federal senators, so Mike Lee or Mitt Romney, phone calls also matter. So taking the time to make that phone call to express your opinion on something is also important. At the local level, I believe that emails are often the very best way to start those conversations. And you should be able to establish relationships that you would eventually be able to move to a phone call or potentially even texting, depending on what your representative is comfortable with. So those are the tips and tricks that I have for you. Again, thank you to the work that the League is doing. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Thank you, Shireen. And at this time, with 8 minutes left for this session, I encourage all questions for Joel and Shireen.
What are the best ways that youth can get involved?
There are so many ways that you can get involved. One thing I'll tell you is I ran for office in high school, right? I was on my, high school, I can't even think of what it was called, but on the, on the governing body that existed in my high school. If you haven't ever run for, a seat or an opportunity to serve in your high school, I would suggest doing it. Get involved in clubs that are doing active work. The ACLU has programs for youth to get involved and advocate. I know the League does as well. You may already likely be involved in that. But the other thing that I think is really important and a really great way to get closely involved in Utah politics is to volunteer on campaigns. We have city council races coming up this year. We have school board races coming up the following year. All of these opportunities are within your reach, and individuals are always looking for people to help, whether that's knocking on doors, making phone calls, working on policy briefs. All of that is accessible to you. So get connected with people who are running for office that you would like to see in office.
So one thing I think would really help to demystify the process for people, I think, is if you could kind of describe what is it like, as a legislator or as, an elected official, what is it like when you receive an email? How do you respond to that? How do you feel about that?
Yeah, so one of the things I think is important to understand is that from a activism perspective, I think we see a lot of these calls to action go out that have sort of a copy and paste, put this text in and send it to your representative. I really don't recommend that. I find that for those mentally, they kind of all get lumped into one message. You sort of take all of that and kind of put it in one category because it's been made incredibly simple for people to just fire off that message. The messages that stood out to me where I made time to make a personalized response or a phone call were ones that had personal detail. So, hi, I'm Shireen, I'm your constituent. And for example, I was able to garner support for a resolution reaffirming our commitment in Salt Lake County as a welcoming community. So when people said what it means to me to have Salt Lake County be a welcoming community, or what it means to me as an immigrant to this country. I'm the daughter of an immigrant personally, but to get those kinds of messages, when you can personalize in any way how the issue connects to you and what you care about, it is a more impactful message. And that can take 1 or 2 sentences. So it's not asking a lot of time, but the more personal that you can make it and the more specific you can make it, the better.
I just have a question for Dr. Hoa. As a fellow for the UMCL, what is the best way to like follow a bill?
That's a really great question. So as for anyone who's looking at legislative tracking, you'll want to do two things. Number one, if it's prior to the legislative session, you'll want to go create that account at le.utah.gov, and you'll want to follow those interim committees, right? Everything from education to law enforcement and et cetera. Because if you register for those meetings, you can attend them in two formats. The format number one is where you register your name and all your identifying information, and then you can enter the Zoom account as a public guest, right? The other option is just to listen to the audio video just sort of more passively on the website. But either way, if it's prior to the legislative session, follow those interim committees, and those are recorded as well and publicly available, and get a sense of what kinds of bills people are going to be introducing in the upcoming session. If it's during the legislative session, continue with your le.utah.gov account and then take a look at those bill lists and go through them either by subject or by bill number and find bills that you think are of particular interest to you. When you get to the bill page, as I showed you earlier, you'll be able to click on the button that reads track this bill, and it'll be added to it. The last piece of information that I'll provide is once you start creating a list of bills in your individual account, there's going to be a little icon that shows kind of like an old kind of mail, like a snail mail. And on that icon, you can click on it, you can select it or deselect it. And that'll give you the option of either receiving email updates on those bills or not receiving them. And that's a great way because depending on the importance of a bill to you, you should probably, if it's very important, you'll probably want to select to receive email updates on those bills because you'll get those directly in your email, and then you don't have to constantly be going into meetings and things like that unless it's necessary for you to know what's going on with the bill.
Thank you. Do we have any questions?
Dr. Arvizo, I was just going to ask you about going into the email aspect. So they actually give you email updates on those. How often do you get email updates on those?
That's a really great question. So depending on how many bills you are tracking and the type, the bill itself, you can get multiple, anywhere from 1 to 3 updates a day on a specific bill, right? Okay. And so the key is you want to practice a certain amount of discretion with those email updates on those bills. For example, with me tracking 229 bills, it doesn't make sense for me to have email updates on every single one of those bills because I'm pretty sure I'd have thousands of emails in my inbox every day. However, if you are tracking, whatever you feel comfortable with, let's say you're tracking 10 bills, for example, it would be perfectly acceptable for you to receive those email updates just to kind of figure out if it's in House Rules Committee, if it's been heard on the Senate floor, if it passed committee with a favorable recommendation, all those sorts of things. So practice some discretion, but you will get, updates daily regarding the bills that you are tracking.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I had a quick question as well. How do we know like the arguments that are for or against a bill? Is there a quick and easy way to find that type of information? Because I think as a layman person, I don't even know all the interconnective, the web between different bills, what's happening already, what hasn't been done. So I would like to learn more about these bills, and I'm wondering if there's an easy way to find out the information.
Yeah, the easiest way to find out that information is twofold. Number one, I definitely recommend whenever possible and as your schedule allows to attend the committee meetings and the House and floor Senate meetings virtually, right? During and when they're live, right? Because that'll give you up-to-date, real-time information regarding the arguments that are being made for bills, either in opposition or favorably. The other way to do that is if you go to the Utah Legislator website, you can look at specific bills or you can look at committees in the House and Senate floor calendar. And in fact, let me go ahead and share my screen really quickly while I'm explaining this. You can go to the calendar on utah.le.gov. And you can actually click on the links for all the various meetings that are happening in the legislature or during the session. And then you can re-listen, right, to the recorded versions of those. And so that's also a really great way to get access to the information that you are requesting. So when you are on the Utah Legislature website, you'll just click here on the calendar, and then you will be able to see all of the committee meetings or House and Senate floor meetings. When you click on a specific meeting, you will be able to see the agenda for the meeting. And then there also should be links when available here in this section for review of the audio video for that meeting as well.
So I was wondering, as someone, I'm a Canadian immigrant to the US, so I don't have a Canadian or a US passport. How can I get involved to make an impact? Because sometimes I feel like you have to be a US citizen to make an impact.
So I really don't think you need to be a US citizen to make an impact. And a big part of that is starting these relationships early, having ongoing conversations with, they do technically still represent, right? So if you're living in the community, you have concerns, your voice should be part of that conversation as well. So really reaching out, connecting with your representatives at all levels and advocating for the things that you care about. Another important way that you can get involved is by joining, advocacy groups or nonprofits that are, working on the issues that you already care about and putting some energy there.
Like us. Thank you, Shireen, for plugging us back into this. It is 10:32 and we already have our first legislator in the House. I want to thank both of you for taking the questions and providing us information. I am going to ask Umar to take over the next session and welcome our guests and begin the part. I'm going to let him introduce it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Representative King, for joining us. This next session is about discussing some of the bills that are on being discussed right now on Capitol Hill, especially the ones as they pertain to the Muslim community. And I think maybe Abid, or I think Samir has the next kind of this bill about the mail-in ballot amendments, and I'll let him introduce this bill, and then we can kind of discuss, our views and how it affects our community.
Yeah, good morning, everybody. Again, mail-in ballots bill is the primary sponsor is Brian King. He is represented from District 28. The bill number is HB 203. Bill is former president of Utah Association for Justice. This bill amends provisions related to voting by mail. It extends the deadline for mailing a ballot to the day of the election, modifies the earliest date on which an election officer may mail a manual ballot, and makes other technical connections.
Thank you. I am happy to chat with you about HB 203. It's a bill that actually has been run in years past, but has not gotten all the way through the legislature to permanently affect our elections code section in our statutes. But as you all know, Utah is one of a number of states that provides voting through mail-in balloting. The county clerk mails out the ballots to everyone about 3 weeks, under current law, it's about 3 weeks before the election, and you have a certain time frame within which to get your ballot back with your choices in the election. And you can mail it in, you can drop it off at a polling location, or you can go as you ordinarily would, just bring it to the election site on election day and vote in person. Right now, the requirement under Utah law is that if you mail it in order for it to be counted, it has to be postmarked not on election day, it has to be postmarked the day before election day. And that's a little counterintuitive, it's a little confusing to people. They would ordinarily expect that if they have it postmarked on election day, it would count, and that's just not true. In fact, we had 800 ballots that were postmarked in Salt Lake County alone on election day in the last election that didn't count. And those folks, unfortunately, they clearly expressed an intention and a desire to vote by putting their ballot in the mail on election day, or maybe even before election day, but it just didn't get postmarked until the day of the election. And so the bill basically does two things. It's trying to make sure that when an individual drops their ballot in the mail on election day, and it's postmarked on election day, that it counts. To do otherwise is, again, disenfranchising voters in a way that is clearly not their intention when they have made the effort to put their ballot in the mail and had it postmarked on the day of the election itself. The other thing that the bill does is it extends somewhat the time frame where for the county clerks to mail the ballots out. Right now, the time frame is about 3 weeks before the election. The bill would extend the time frame within which the county clerk can begin to mail ballots out to about 4 weeks before the election. So again, gives the county clerk a little bit more time. County clerks across the state like that extra time. It helps them do their jobs more effectively and efficiently. And of course, if we can have ballots counted when they're postmarked on election day, that's a positive thing for everyone involved. So in that sense, I think there was a comment about how this affects the community. And I think the way it affects the community is it expands the right to vote and the ability for individuals who vote by mail to have their vote counted.
Thank you, Representative King. I have a quick question for you.
Sure.
How in your district do you, I know this is not the only bill you're running, there are a lot of other pertinent ones, and with the lack of time, we couldn't bring anything in. What I would want our community to understand from you is, since we are very diverse and spread out, what process do you take in to get perspective from our community when you're thinking about the bills, and how can we be more involved directly?
Oh, thank you for that question, Luna. It's a great question. Look, I think it's critically important that the members of the Muslim community feel like they're able to and are in fact effective at communicating their concerns to legislators. I think I'm not alone in putting in a very prominent way my contact information on the internet, on our legislative website. I have my cell phone on there. I get many, many texts. I get many, many emails. I have a great intern who we try and read and respond to as many emails as possible. We can't get to them all, obviously, but we work hard to get to as many as we can. I give particular attention, as I think most legislators do, to individuals who live in my district, in District 28. But I don't limit my communication to people within the district. So I particularly think it's important, as you note, I mean, I have my relationship with you, Luna. You and I have talked about a lot of things over a lot of different times. And there are others within the Muslim community that I have good communication with and contacts with, and who I go to and I trust that I have a source of expertise on issues that I think address that community particularly. Democrats generally are much more likely, I think, to take into account marginalized communities or minority communities. And that's true whether you're talking about ethnicity, it's true whether you're talking about socioeconomic status, it's true whether you're talking about religious communities. So I like to think, and we try hard in my caucus to pay particular attention to those who are struggling for various reasons. Maybe it's English as a second language, maybe it's discrimination in the religious context, but those are things that we take very seriously and that we pride ourselves within the caucus on trying to do the best job we can in addressing. We fail, though, at times, as all humans do, and it's critically important from my perspective to get feedback from you about how we can satisfy this role, how we can fill this role more effectively. So thank you for the question. And I just want to say, anybody who wants to contact me and says, hey, Representative King, you need to know something that we're experiencing as a community of minority individuals, and at least with regard to our religious beliefs, and that is this is happening or that's happening. I want to know that. I unfortunately, although I've worked hard at the mind reading thing, it's a tough gig. The mind reading thing is a tough gig. So please reach out to me and let me know, and I promise you I'll listen, and I will do my best to address those concerns.
I know you always have, and we will keep holding you accountable, but also do our job as a community organization to connect you to the members within your own district, members of our community that live within your own district. And perhaps during this year, we will make a concerted effort to do a town hall with you.
Love to, Luna. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? I don't see any hands raised.
I see Mohammed Bait's hand raised.
Oh, go ahead.
Hi, Representative King. Thank you so much for taking time to be here. So just introduce myself. I'm Mohammed Bait. I am a new elected person to the Salt Lake City School Board District.
Oh, great.
And I'm in District 5. And I sincerely look forward to working with you, especially in any bills that pertains to education equity within.
Mohammed, what house district do you live in? What part of Salt Lake City do you live in?
I am actually I'm in district, let's see here, I am with Joel Briscoe.
Yeah.
So he is my representative in this district here, and Derek Kitchen for the Senate.
Yeah.
So, and I really, really look forward to, one day meeting you in person and see what we can do.
You don't have an easy job, Mohammed. I mean,
no.
I mean, I think I got a tough job up here, and I look at our Salt Lake City School District counselors, and I go, oh my gosh.
And it's been, there is no better time and year than now to serve. It really is. And thank you for everything you do as well for us. Appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Representative King. It seems like our questions are limited because you provided such an extensive and clear sort of explanation. We are going to move on to sort of the other bills our community is supporting. You're welcome to join in. We'll keep moving forward. And if anybody has questions for as long as the representative here is here, please feel free to ask.
Yeah, I'm going to take off because I'm missing floor time, but thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to appear with you, and I appreciate it.
Take care.
Thank you so much.
We'll move on to the next bill, which will be introduced by our brother Sharik Khan. And that's a bill that's being, the chief sponsor of that is Rep. Ray Ward. And so Sharik, if you want to just introduce the bill, and then if Ray comes on, you can give an introduction to him.
Sure. Good morning again. So the bill is for Representative Ray Ward. He's a Republican in District number 19, that I believe is Bountiful area. And the bill is called HB 82. The bill is called a single family housing modification. So the bill basically is, it modifies and defines terms applicable to municipal and county land use, and that allows a municipality or county to punish individuals who list or offer a certain licensed or permitted accessory dwelling as a short-term rental unit, meaning that if any rental unit is less than 30 days, for example, like Airbnb and things of that nature, so it's to punish that, so people will not be able to use their homes as or their rent other properties as Airbnb. So that's what the bill is, and it's not been given any funding as yet or grant as yet for this bill. So that's the one we were thinking of talking to Mr. Ray Ward about. So and I hope that he does join us to discuss this. But if anybody else has any questions on this, would be great.
I do have a question. Oh,
I'm sorry, I cannot hear.
I think he's having maybe an echo issue. No problem. While you get that sorted out, and feel free to raise your hand and we can revisit this. Obviously, when the representative joins us, we'll have an opportunity to talk about this as well. But I would like to give it to Abid for the next introduction to the next bills and discuss further. Abid is a wealth of knowledge on this, so I'm always asking him different questions, and I know everybody else does. So please share your next bills with us. Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. And I actually just quickly, before I hop into my representatives, I also want to mention that Representative Ray Ward has another bill that also we're quite interested in called the Clean and Renewable Energy Requirement Amendments, which basically requires that a certain percentage of large-scale electric utilities' annual retail sales come from qualifying clean electricity, which I think is important both for our community and for all communities in Utah, obviously, especially in the Salt Lake area where we have a lot of air quality issues, and having more clean energy mandates is helpful with that. But I'd like to introduce Representative Craig Hall first, who is a Republican from District 33. He's held that seat since 2013 in West Valley, and he represents a district in West Valley City. And there's a few bills we'd like to talk to him about today. The first is HB 87, which is Electronic Information and Data Privacy Amendments, which requires, with specific exceptions, law enforcement agencies to obtain a warrant for electronic data or information transmitted through an electronic communication service. Basically, it amends the rules around warrants for electronic data in favor of privacy. The next one is HB 245, Forcible Entry and Warrant Amendments. And this is actually, very similar to if you've heard about, the case of Breonna Taylor and the Breonna law that they tried to pass. Basically, in Breonna Taylor's case, what happened was a no-knock warrant, and this bill would essentially restrain that sort of warrant from occurring. And so that's a big criminal justice reform. It restrains both no-knock and what's called knock and announce warrant restrictions, or warrants rather. And lastly, from Representative Hall, we have House Bill 229 called Internal Investigations Amendments. And this one basically requires independent investigation of certain internal investigation of criminal misconduct. So if one agency, is having an internal investigation for, possible criminal misconduct, this bill would make it so they actually have to seek an independent agency to come in and look at what's going on. Obviously, this increases accountability for government offices, insofar as, it's not, the same agency is not, judge, jury, and sentencer, as it were. I also have Representative Mike Winder, who is a Republican from District 30. He's held that seat since 2017, and he's also representing West Valley City, and he was also formerly the mayor of West Valley City. And we have a few bills from him as well. A few highlights: HB 81, Mental Health Days for Students, basically makes mental health or behavioral health a valid excuse for a school absence, which, obviously very important for, students' well-being in general. I think, especially this year, we're all, becoming more and more aware of the extent to which mental health is something to be maintained. And this bill helps with that. There's HB 110, which is the healthcare payment amendments, and that basically restrict certain collections on for healthcare providers so that they can't collect overdue payments from a debtor's income tax overpayment or refund. Basically, protects patients' rights with regards to payment. HB 127 is a ranked choice voting amendment. This kind of falls along the lines of Representative Brian King, where it's an amendment to the voting system to make it more equitable, and it's specifically ranked choice voting in primaries, which allows for a wider field, more participation, and allows votes, or rather, the nominee in certain races to more accurately reflect what the people or what voters want. And lastly, HB 323, High Poverty Schools Teacher Bonus Program, which basically amends eligibility requirements for teachers in high poverty schools to receive a salary bonus from the State Board of Education. Should I, do we want to move on, or does anyone have questions about any of those bills? All right, I think we can call on Libe to discuss Representative Sandra Hollins.
Hey, hi everyone. So I'll be introducing Representative Sandra Hollins. She is a Democrat. She is in charge of District 23. She's a part of the National Association of Social Workers, the House Ethics Committee, and she's the first Black woman to serve in the Utah legislature, which is amazing. One of her bills is HB 345, which is School Resource Officer Amendments. This bill amends provisions relating to a local education agency's ability to contract with a law enforcement agency for school resource officer services. A little more about this bill. They are amends propositions related to a training that statute requires the State Board of Education to prepare and make available, including broadening the intended audience, requiring rather than suggesting specific content, and adding certain additional content. Basically, it's wanting more rules and regulations surrounding having police officers working in school districts. Another one of her bills is HJR 013, which is Joint Resolution Declaring Racism a Moral and Public Health Crisis. So this affirms that different access to opportunities according to race persist and highlight racial disparities in health measures. I think that's pretty self-explanatory, and it seems like a great bill. And as was kind of discussed before, there are a lot of just blocks when it comes to people of color attaining health measures. There are issues in that, so this is going to tackle that.
Awesome. Well, we don't have the representative on now, so I think we'll move on to the next person on our list. We have Amreen, who will introduce a few bills from Angela Romero.
So Angela Romero is a representative from the 26th district. She is of Chicano and Indigenous descent. She's had 3 bills that I'd be introducing. So the first one is Use of Force Reporting Requirements, HB 84. The general description of this bill is that it requires law local law enforcement agencies to collect and submit data on the use of force to the Bureau of Criminal Identification. And this would include use of force, including information that is submitted to the FBI and reports any changes that happen. The second bill is the Law Enforcement Weapons Use Amendment, Bill number HB 264. And this bill requires that a law enforcement officer file a report after pointing either a firearm or a conductive energy device, such as a taser, at an individual. And this would happen by reporting using a report, as well as having a supervisory review of the report and reporting any exceptions to that report. And then the third law is the HB 162 Peace Officer Training Amendments. And this bill requires that a portion of peace officers' annual training to include certain subjects. These include mental health and other crisis intervention responses, arrest control and de-escalation training. And it provides each law enforcement agency or department to set standards for such trainings by their director or a designee for that training. And it also requires that there is an annual reporting of the hours to the division regarding the number of hours that were used for training.
If anyone has a question for Ambreen for any of these bills explanation.
I did have a question, not necessarily for Ambreen, but I mean, what about like cultural sensitivity? And is that part of the discussion with you know, training these police officers or first responders when dealing with people from immigrant or refugee backgrounds? I haven't heard or read too much about that type of training. Maybe Abid or Luna, if you know of something happening within this area.
Can I answer that question?
Yeah, please.
Okay. So recently I read one of the bills that's they're thinking about passing is allowing non-US citizens to become police officers in Utah, because they feel that since in the Army, in the US service members are allowed to be non-US citizens who can service. So they're thinking of the same concept. So what they want to try to do is recruit police from that community who may not be a US citizen, so they can at least address that issue of having a police officer be a member of their community. So I think that is, I hope that passes the Senate and signs into law by the governor. I think that will be great. I think that may address some of your questions.
Thank you, Sharik. And I think I want to provide a little bit of more background. We all are very aware of, you know, the summer around the protests and everything that has happened. So in response to these events, the Salt Lake City mayor, who has a direct police force under her, started a new commission called Racial Equity and Policing, as well as the Criminal Justice Reform Committee under the state also started engaging with different community members at various levels. So a lot of bills that Angela Romero is actually carrying are a result of those consultative processes that happened over summer. The commission itself right now is divided into 4 categories. One is the SROs, which is the school resource officers. The second is the policy, and third is the training, and then the fourth one is escaping my mind, but there's a fourth one very relevant. And what they are doing is they're actually conducting public town halls at the moment. I do try to put that information out through our social media or my own personal social media, and they're taking recommendations from the community members. They are asking for direct feedback. And I think policing, the way it affects our community is very different from the mainstream. And this is something that if we want to have a say in, it is very important for us as a community to tune into this commission's work and provide feedback. The article that Sharik mentioned has been actually propagated by a lot of refugee community here in Salt Lake, because there are a lot of folks who came who were serving in police force in their own countries, but they were not able to get recruited here. So we've been pushing for equity into recruiting in not only just police, but let's say fire department and so on, and also dropping the qualification around language and so on. So there's a lot of work happening, and if anybody is interested, we'd be more than willing to provide more information. I do see a hand raised with the questions too. Please go ahead.
Brother Khalifa, I think you're muted. There we go.
Okay. I think you were looking for restorative justice. Is that the other thing that you were thinking about, Luna? Restorative justice?
No, it's actually it was actually a committee. So
a committee.
This is
Oh,
all
okay.
related to policing. So different
Okay.
policing departments.
Yeah, but I wanted to comment on another representative that's on the bandwagon, I want to say, for police training, peace officer training. That is, I believe his name is Scott Christensen, or Steve Christensen. He's out of West Jordan, and he has a proposal to actually is training for peace officers as well. It's HB 307. This is a bill that pertains to, let me look it up real quick. Bill creates a grant program for local law enforcement agencies to provide outward mindset equality training, is what he calls that. And it allows for local law enforcement agencies to provide outward mindset and equality training to their officers with post-training. I don't know if you know what post-training, but that's the standard exam that they go through training for their standard exams before they become police officers. So that's something that a lot of other, I guess, representatives from different districts besides the Democrats are doing. They're trying to, I guess, get on that same bandwagon.
In some ways, it is correct. There is also a difference, and it's a very sort of confusing maze as to how the policing and the criminal justice system exists in Utah. So, for example, there is a direct police sort of thing under the Salt Lake City mayor, but the Salt Lake County mayor does not have a police force. That's an elected position, and UPD and everything is under those. Under her sort of director, or and the state has a different system. So to understand and map out as to what are the reporting lines and where the legislator can actually affect, or where the mayor actually can affect, is quite complicated. But there's a lot of work happening at all levels. And I think what is important is for us to be involved in that process. And you know, the bills you're pointing out and everything are very important. I'm not sure if they're on our tracker or not, and if they're not, we will add them. Thank you for the information.
Okay,
And
thank you. You're welcome.
Keep the conversation going. We'll take the next question.
Brother Mohammed Bait.
Hi, everyone. So over the summer, I was consulting the UHP, and that's actually, you know, where the commissioner of the Utah Safety Department, basically the big guy of all, you know, the police force, anyone that's involved in the safety. And it's very interesting. So as we were having a meeting with them, and this is just me as a citizen coming in, the training, he actually, you know, said that the training, unfortunately, that they have are usually just training that they have to check mark, because that's what government agencies do. I was in the Navy, I was with the VA, and it is true. Check mark, you know, done with training. And so one thing that's, stood out to me and I was asked about it is the SROs, which is the police presence in at schools. And I provided them my point of view, and this is something that I'm thinking, down the road to address and do some changes about it, which is the presence actually of heavy armed police officers at high schools. We have refugee communities. We have immigrants who actually escaped, wars, run away from, so many things that kind of like hurt them and their families. And you can imagine walking into a school, seeing a heavy armed police officer, and what kind of post-traumatic stress disorder that will generate. And so, and not only that, also with the racial injustice, the social injustice that's been going on. So you can see as well the discomfort the Black and Brown communities would feel when they are at schools. So this is something that I've been, thinking about, and I'm gonna be, this is me, I'm gonna be like pushing, hopefully we can get either have the police officers be out of the schools and have more like a semi-annual town hall meetings where the police officers would come actually and train students about how they can take care of each other. They should be the ones, they should be the community that should watch for each other. So, any inputs that we can do, anyone that would be a good force in helping me get this through would be so fantastic. But it is something I'm going to be introducing to our superintendent down the road. All right, thank you.
So I obviously absolutely understand and feel that this is one of the most important area of intervention for our community. Once again, when we look at data-driven research, they say 1 out of every third student, Muslim student, is bullied because of their faith, and most of them, 8 out of 10, tends to be the school principal or teachers or people in sort of authority. And these are national figures, and we've conducted workshops with the Utah teachers and school district and so on. But also being on the other side of discussions around SROs and everything, I think the culture is pretty much established that the police will stay there, but on what terms? I think that is something that you are in unique position to advocate for. And I think our kids need this intervention because this is the first place where they start receiving negativity from the community in general, and we need to help create policies that are mindful of our community. I welcome everybody else's remarks on this issue from the community because we all know that our kids face many, many challenges.
Yeah, and if I may, Luna, the other thing too, everyone should know is that our school funding is 3rd worst in the nation. That is fantastic, isn't it? We are like, look at us, we're famous across the nation. So, and you think about that, 3rd worst in the nation. And when we have SROs at schools, the school district pays for half of their salary. It doesn't add up. And so if that is the case, I mean, this is the point. I mean, it's okay. If they want to have officers in there, that is fantastic as long as they can pay for it. And then we can see what's going to happen from there. So I am thinking about students. I'm thinking about, as a Black man, as a Muslim, if I walk in to go see my daughter out there, and my daughter, she is outgoing, but she feels intimidated when there is a police officer. But I have talked to the police officer. He's a nice person, really nice, genuine person. But sadly to say, the stigma, not a stigma, the reality of what goes on within the force is much more different than what we see.
I do also want to bring in the question of privilege here. You may be able to meet with the policeman, and for him to know what you do in the community. There are many with language barriers who cannot advocate for their kids, and that's where our focus needs to be, to protect that community. I also, if any of the students here with us today, if they want to kind of mention any experiences or anything that they've seen around SROs, I really welcome those comments.
So I'm not a student, I didn't go to school here, but my husband's a teacher in West Valley. And he works with mostly communities of color. And he has witnessed, he comes from a place of privilege as a white man, but he has definitely witnessed a lot of discrimination and treatment that is different when it comes to use of force and detentions and suspensions for communities of color and people of color. And they're treated very differently. And so I'm heartened to see that there's work being done, but I think that even at a teaching level, they have diversity, equity, inclusion trainings, but it only goes as far as people who are invested in that cause themselves. And if you're not invested, you can easily check out. And I think that goes, again, applies to police officers as well. And if you are doing these trainings, how impactful are they really? If only those that are invested truly are the ones that are walking away from it with something that they're going to then implement.
I've been lucky enough not to have any direct, interactions with SROs, but I formerly worked in Salt Lake Peer Court, which is a restorative justice organization that basically, if a kid at school has, say, a truancy violation or something like that, we would, implement restorative justice measures. And, the children we had were disproportionately of minority backgrounds, and almost every incident involved, a run-in with an SRO of some sort. So, there's this big issue around the school to prison pipeline, where minority students are very heavily policed at school. And then, if they end up having a criminal record while they're still in school, that makes them far more likely to end up having a criminal record after, which, ends up poorly for life outcomes, obviously. And so, working to reduce SRO presence is like a really meaningful way in which we can reduce the over-incarceration problem of Black and Brown communities.
You are absolutely right, Abid. I also want to mention it for the community to know that if an SRO, the SRO is allowed to question a 13 to 14-year-old of age kids, and if they are also allowed to do so without parental involvement, and if they do find a cause to arrest them, that they can. And this has caused a lot of issues in the community. There was a case that was brought on by ACLU against the Salt Lake School District for disproportionate arrests and feeding the school to prison pipeline. That then went into an agreement, a settlement outside the court, and that also included an MOU around SROs. And that MOU is about to expire, I believe, in March. And Representative Hollins is working on creating an amendment and extension. In the previous mayor's office, there was somebody who was specifically looking at the education department and helping with the school to prison pipeline and everything. At this moment, it has been tasked to the commission, and they, like I said, have a specific committee on SROs and holding conversations with parents who have kids who have been affected by that. So once again, I encourage all of you to please speak up for your kids and let them know what needs to be done in this area.
I think there's also a bill sort of related to this about interrogation of minors, and maybe Abed or Luna, you might be able to speak about this, but allowing for or having a child have a legal guardian or parent or friendly adult present while in the custody of a police officer. And so I don't think that the bill has passed yet, but I think that bill is there to kind of clarify what what is defined as a friendly adult or a guardian, and it also clarifies a minor's waiver right to counsel. So that's also a bill that we should be keeping an eye on and tracking, for our kids. I think is very pertinent. Being I was a Boy Scout leader for a couple years for the refugee community. This was an issue that we had dealt with and faced with kind of harsh or kind of aggressive punishment or prosecution by law enforcement for smaller minor offenses, and often coming down a lot harder on these kids than than they should have, even to the point where the community that they were living in, they were being forced to evict that family. So I think this is something we should be watching. I don't know if anybody else has any comments or questions. I see some new people joining. Let's see here.
Abid, I believe we have Representative Winder here. If you would take the moment to introduce him.
Yeah, for sure. Hi, Representative Winder. Thank you so much for
Hello.
being here. We've already talked a little bit about your bills, specifically mental health days for students, healthcare payment amendments, ranked choice voting, and the high poverty school teacher bonus program. If you'd like to expand on those, discuss your own other legislative of yours.
Yeah, I appreciate the time to be with you. I have a number of dear Muslim friends and neighbors and those who live in my district. And I think a lot of the things we're running this session cut across cultural and religious lines. Mental health is a good example of that. I've co-sponsored a bill to help first responders with mental health needs, as well as mental health day for students. So I don't have a lot of time because I just stepped off the floor here between votes, but thought I'd chime in, at least let you know how much I appreciate all that you do and the good in the world that your group does, and see if you have any questions.
Representative Winder, this is Mohammed.
Yes.
I am a new school board board member in Salt Lake City, District 5.
Right.
And I really appreciate that bill. That is so fantastic. And I would love to get in touch with you sometime and just, chat a little more. And if you go into Salt Lake City School District, you'll be able to find my contact information there. And I'll email you actually, so.
Great, thank you. Yeah, I'm easy to find as well and happy to visit about that. That bill actually came to me from my daughter, Jessica. She's a senior and psychology major at Southern Utah University, and frankly has some mental health challenges herself. So she's become quite an advocate there. And we're finding, especially with the pandemic, sometimes kids are at the breaking point and we don't want to lose anybody. It doesn't mean it gets them out of all their work. They still have to make up work. And it still needs to be the parents excusing him, not just a kid saying, I need a day off today. And so, but it does empower parents to do that and not just pretend their kid's sick. So we're trying to end the stigma with mental health. And Mohammed, if there's any way I can be helpful to you after the session, just feel free to holler.
Thank you.
My wife, Karen, is the president of the Granite School Board. So we talk school district, school board stuff quite a bit at our home.
That's fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And if you have a minute, I'd love to kind of hear about the ranked choice voting amendment
Sure.
legislation you're trying to get passed, and what's the motivation?
You know, Utah is a leader in elections, and we see that with our with our vote by mail. It works so well in Utah. Oh, hold on, I need to vote. Luckily, this is an easy, unanimous one.
Well, at least we get a first-hand view of what's happening.
There you go. See, it's a. I didn't step out. I saw the next few were a little easy, and so I thought, oh, those I can jump in and give them the up finger, or you do go like this if you want to vote no. But anyway, so Utah has been a great leader in election reform. But we've seen an interesting thing where we're seeing more candidates getting on the ballot because of the signature path. And because of that, in the primaries, a winner can win with just a small number. For example, when Spencer Cox won his governor nomination, it was just with 36% of the vote. And because it wasn't a clear over 50, you had a lot of people saying, gee, should we run a write-in campaign for John Huntsman, who came in second? Do we do something else? We saw some members of Congress win with just 31% of the vote. And so what this does is says, no, we're going to have it so that in Utah, on the primary elections, you do ranked choice voting. You pick who you want first, second, third, fourth. And if the last place person doesn't break through in the first round, their votes automatically roll up. Their second choice votes become their first choices and roll up, so on and so forth. We're not sure if that bill is going to make it through this session. There's some on the Senate side that say that may be too much too far. There is a bill by Representative Stenquist to further broaden the number of municipal primary elections that can use ranked choice voting, which would be great. We had Vineyard and Payson in Utah County do ranked choice voting 2 years ago, and it worked wonderfully. So one strategy may be let's let more municipalities do ranked choice voting this year, and then let's look again at maybe some of the primaries. But we'd like the idea of empowering people's vote. So it's not, I just want this person or that person. And that has some real world implications. For example, in the New Hampshire primary, when in 2016, Donald Trump won that with 17% of the vote. Most of the voters did not want Donald Trump, but because he had the most votes in a crowded field, he won all the delegates and began to snowball his ascent. And so history would have had a different outcome, for example, if the New Hampshire primary had ranked choice voting. You probably would have seen Marco Rubio or Ted Cruz or Jeb Bush or someone else win besides Trump. And so there's a lot of interesting cases where ranked choice voting can really better express the will of the voters. Okay, hold on. How do I vote on this one? This is an easy one too. Hold on. It's all fun and games till more controversial votes come up, and then we have some grand debates and need to dig in deeper, but we run at a pretty fast pace this time of year. Anyway, any other questions you guys may have?
Thank you, Representative. We are really living large through you. And my name is Luna Banuri, and I'm the Executive Director for Utah Muslim Civic League. You do represent a section of the state where one of the most diverse population lives, and a lot of our community is around your district. We would love to explore how to provide our feedback on a regular basis to you. If you have any ideas, we welcome that.
Yeah, that's a great question. The nice thing is, being a public figure, we're pretty accessible. You can Google Mike Winder and easily get my cell phone number and personal email. And unlike a member of Congress that represents so many people, as a legislator, we're pretty close to people. So we read every email and respond to our own mail and phone calls. So it's easy to, if you ever have issues you want to send our way. During the legislative session, what a lot of groups do is they have kind of a bill tracking list where they'll list, and I've seen chambers of commerce do this, the UEA, other groups, where they'll list the bills that they're interested in, and that they've taken a position of support or oppose. And we get those weekly from different groups, and we send to our interns, and they put them in spreadsheets for us. When we get to the fast and furious point of the session, we can quickly look and say, ooh, this is a bill the Utah Muslim League supports, or this is one they oppose. And that's very helpful, frankly, to know where different groups stand. Because you talk about it in your groups, but unless we know where you stand, then it's going to be tougher for us to be responsive.
Thank you.
Hold
That's
on.
really
The
sage
good news is we
advice.
read these bills in advance. So hold on. Anyway, so I think during this session, maybe to have kind of a tracking sheet that you put together and email it out to every legislator once a week, and we look at those, and those are helpful.
It's really
And then
sage
during
advice,
the
and
during
we
the
do have
year, yeah, so that's good to know. And then another thing is realize we can start opening bill files in mid-May. And so if there's ideas you have for legislation, let's start working on that in the summer. Because if you wait till the end, our drafting attorneys get too busy and we can't, there's a bit of a traffic jam. So if there's ideas we can start working on in the summertime and the fall even, that's a good way to get things moving too. So those are a couple ideas.
Thank you. I think those are great ideas, and we will take you on. But I also would say, please accept the compliment. You may be a public person, but you're much more open than most of your colleagues who would not respond to our invites as well. So
Oh,
thank
well,
you
I
for
try to,
joining in.
oh, you're very welcome. And I, hold on, I need to, we're slogging through a bunch of them right now, which is good. But at least it's a group of easy bills, right? Anyway, we'll have harder ones this afternoon, I'm told. But hey, I try to be open, and I love what Theodore Roosevelt once said, as he said, in America, we are the government, you and I. And it's especially true in Utah with a part-time legislature. So anytime we can be responsive, let us know. I've been to the Khadijah Mosque several times when I was mayor of West Valley City, and I have Muslim friends. I enjoyed traveling to India recently and was able to experience some of the beautiful Muslim culture there. I'm planning a trip in October to Egypt and Kenya with my father and brother. And I continue to love the good Muslim people throughout the world, and especially here in Utah. So know that you have a voice here, know that you are appreciated here, and know that you have a friend here with me. So thank you.
Actually, I think we have Senator Thatcher on the call, and I believe the
Okay,
two
bye.
of you, both are working on the post-council membership amendments. So that might be a valuable thing to speak about right now while we have the both of you. Although, yeah.
I think Mr. Winder dropped off, but maybe Senator Thatcher, if you'd like to pick up. And before you get into that, I would like to just quickly introduce Senator Thatcher. He is not a stranger to our community. He's engaged with us in the past election cycle and joined us for a town hall. He's a member of the state Senate from District 12. He also co-founded the Salt Lake County Young Republicans chapter, and he's held different positions in the Republican Party in Utah. So thank you for joining us, Senator Thatcher. If you want to pick up, and then we can follow up with some questions.
I think you might be muted, Senator.
He's still having some sound issues. Feel free to chime in when you do get that sound up. Some of the bills, I'll just give a quick overview that Senator Thatcher is sponsoring. He's sponsoring this. Oh, are you there?
Yep. Can you hear me now?
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay. Sorry, we're actually on the floor right now, and so I'm missing a bunch of votes. So yeah, we had to. It was on here, but I had to go in and enable it through a different setting. Oh my gosh, we have so many bills this year. We talked about this last time we had a meeting, and I actually would like to echo what Representative Winder said. I think that if you guys were to have, even if it's a volunteer, if you were to have somebody put together like a little committee where you guys could discuss bills and take positions on bills, call the legislators, ask, I saw Lieben on this call. And I don't know how well you guys know him, but he was one of the best interns we ever had up here. He knows the processes. He knows how things run up here. He would be, I think, a fantastic resource to help you guys put together like a tracking sheet and take positions. Because if you're more engaged, if you're more visible on the Hill, then when you reach out to someone like me and say, Senator Thatcher, we look at this bill and we like where you're trying to go, but we think that this could be a problem that maybe you could help us fix. You can get amendments done, you can get substitutions made, and you can help steer the policy for the state of Utah to make sure that it's more inclusive. We do not currently have any Muslims serving in the state legislature. That's something I hope to fix when I convince Abdikadir Eftin to run for office. So he's somebody else. I don't know if he's on the call. I'm trying to scroll through and look at all the participants, but he's somebody else I'd like to see you guys be involved with. I don't know if you want to have deep conversations about one or two bills. Instead, let me just kind of hit a couple of high points. Last time we talked, we discussed the employment bill about removing some of those artificial education barriers that keep first generation Americans from having access to the same level of employment that others might have. Not everyone is going to have an opportunity to go to college. And so unless there is a college degree required for a specific job, we were successful in getting a bill through that opens those employment opportunities up. For law enforcement and better accountability, we've got 3 bills that we worked on with the NAACP. That will address statewide standards for use of force, statewide standards and better transparency for officer discipline. And I see Mark Wheatley has jumped on the call, and he and I have been working together to do a better job of getting citizen review boards available for all law enforcement agencies in the state. On the mental health front, we've got our CIT board, which we're putting together to help make sure that law enforcement does a better job of getting training for mental and behavioral health issues. Representative Elison and I are working on a special needs training so that they can better understand the issues of autism when they respond to police calls involving those types of special need individuals. We've got a bill that creates a behavioral EMT, which will be really exciting. And of course, 988 is probably the biggest thing that I will ever do in my entire life. And that's going to be a 3-digit number, 988. It's just like 911 that you'll be able to call for suicide prevention or mental health issues. I am telling you, it is an absolute game changer. It is going to change the world. It's going to save so many lives. We've got bills to address how law enforcement uses facial recognition technology and to place some limits on that. We've got the bill to rein in the canine units and police use of dogs. We've got bills, oh my gosh, how many of you saw that a protester got charged with life in prison over the interim for painting a building? That was done by inappropriate application of the gang enhancement. So I've passed a bill, and I think the House just passed it, that reins in the use of the gang enhancement for any crime that does not involve injuring a human being. We've got a bill on collateral consequences so that if you accept a plea deal, they have to tell you what the consequences are beyond beyond your prison term. We had a guy who took a plea deal because he was promised he wouldn't go to jail, and then found out that he would lose his professional license, that he wouldn't be able to have a job. He lost his car, he lost his house, and he had no idea that when he pled guilty, instead of fighting, because the prosecutor promised him he wouldn't go to jail if he pled guilty, he had all of these other consequences that occurred. And if he had known that was going to happen, he could have fought it. He could have fought in court. Let's see, the post-council bill you just brought up, that will add the NAACP permanently as a member of the post-council. And so that is the group that talks about what law enforcement training should look like and what their rules should be. And I think it's long past time. So yeah, oh, the last bill I'm super excited about, Marcia Judkins, representative from Utah County. I wish I had known this. I would have run the bill 10 years ago. Turns out it is not required to notify parents before interrogating a child. Okay, yeah. I just saw a couple of eyebrows grow up. I think that's horrifying. The idea that police could question a child without telling their parents first should be upsetting to all of you. So we're going to fix it. I expect the bill to pass unanimously. I think it's indefensible. I think there is absolutely no justification for ever interrogating a child without their parents present. So those are the things I'm working on. I don't know if you can tell I'm kind of out of breath because I'm like running. I'm actually ignoring floor votes right now, which is grossly inappropriate.
Thank you. I'm going to make a very quick comment to you. You mentioned two of our stalwart kids on the Hill. There are two Muslims who have been appointed to the Racial Equity Policing Commission. You may want their input too, and I'll make sure that they get to you. But
absolutely.
The menu of your bills has been breathtaking for us as well. I mean, looking at so many great bills, one of the issues perhaps going down is the CVE funding. For that affects Muslims in a very different way in the state and nationally. And when we talk about the George Floyd killing, it is directly linked to the CVE funding. So yes, in May, let's talk about it. And I'm sure you're the one who has the courage to bring this for an open discussion.
You know, I support law enforcement. I support the rule of law. I support public safety, and I think we all do. I think we all, and so I've built that reputation with law enforcement that I trust them, that I support them. And so when I come to them and say, guys, we need to raise the bar. One bad actor in Salt Lake City brought to light glaring holes in the canine program. And so while it doesn't matter that 99% of all canine officers are good, if that 1% is the one that ordered his dog to bite your kid when they shouldn't have. And so we raise the bar. That's what we do. We find problems. We go to law enforcement. We say, guys, we can't do this. Let's raise the bar. And if you have those relationships where they trust you and they trust where you're coming from, then it's really easy to facilitate those conversations, bringing these groups together. So I would love to be that person for you. I would love to help make that happen. But at the same time, I really think that we need to, you know, I learned recently that there's a lot of people who will not apply for jobs. There was a Harvard study that showed that women and minorities do not apply for jobs unless they feel that they are overqualified. And I think that that is terrible. I want you to know, I have people all the time ask me, what do you have to do to be qualified to run for public office? What kind of degree do you need? Do I need a degree in political science? Do I need this? Do I need that? Do I need to be wealthy? I was 33 years old and grew up out by Valley Fair Mall. Any of you guys in West Valley know my neighborhood is maybe not the best neighborhood to grow up in, but I loved it. You know, I went to Westlake Junior High. I went to Granger High School, and I was a construction worker. And I saw what was happening in my neighborhood, and it wasn't fair. And I went to my senator, and I asked him to solve the problem, and he didn't. And I went to him on another issue, and I asked him to solve the problem, and he didn't. And I don't know if any of you guys live in Kearns or Magna, or if you remember when they did a police fee. when they passed a budget with no money for law enforcement and then told everybody in Magna and Kearns, we're going to take extra money from you every single month to pay for police. It was against the law. What they did was it violated the Utah State Constitution, and it really hurt a lot of low-income families. I don't know if you guys have friends in Magna or Kearns, but I'm willing to bet they probably couldn't afford to pay an extra couple $100 a year in bonus fees. And when I went to my senator for the third time, and I said, Senator, are you going to help these people? And he said, no, because that's not my problem. That was when I decided to run for office. I didn't have a college degree. I didn't have money in the bank. I didn't have fame. I didn't have name recognition. But I knew that I was willing to go to work to protect people and to help people. I knew that if somebody brought me problems, I wasn't going to say that's not my problem. Let me be clear. Your problems are my problems. Otherwise, I'm the problem. And if that happens, and if you have a legislator who is not willing to make your problems their problems, then they're the problem. And so here's what I'm going to tell you. Even if you don't want to, even if you don't think you're qualified, if you have the capacity, if you can read these bills and make some sense of them, if you can, you don't have to be able to write them yourself. You just have to come up with the ideas. There are attorneys who will write the bills for you. If you think you might be able to do this job, talk to me after session. I don't care where you live. I don't care if you're a donkey or an elephant. I care if you care about people. That is the requirement. You don't need to know Einstein's theory of relativity. You just have to care. You have to care about people, and you have to be willing to work until you can't sleep at night. And if you do that, you can do a lot of good and you can help a lot of people. So if you want to run, I want to talk to you. I want to help you. I don't care what party you're from. So I feel like I've probably taken way more time than I should have. And I know that you had a couple other legislators on here, so I should probably stop talking.
Oh, you're totally fine, Senator Thatcher, and really appreciate you taking the time away from the floor to speak with us and communicate. Any quick questions or comments from anybody else before we let Senator Thatcher go? Please, Mohammed, go ahead.
Senator Thatcher, thank you. Thank you so much for joining us. I personally look forward to getting to know you. I am the first Muslim elected official in Salt Lake City School District, District 5 school board member. And, you know, I got a lot to learn. And I absolutely echo what you just said. You do not, if you have aspiration, just go and do it. And, you know, and my aspiration is to be one day where you are sitting. And I know it's going to be a long path, but it is possible for it to happen.
All right, I'm going to drop my mobile number. Let's see, I'm trying to see where I can type in chat.
You can't.
I see Q&A, I don't see chat.
You can drop it in the Q&A, yeah, and we can post that.
All right, where do
I'm
I?
happy to share with Babe. Mohammed, I have Senator Thatcher's cell phone.
Yeah, if you'll just, you know what, if you want to write it down, just text me, not specifically just Mohammed, any of you. If you need to talk to me, if you send me a text with your information, I will save you to my phone. I can't promise I can always take your call or get back to you right away, but I promise I will do my best. My mobile number is 801-759-4746. That's 801-759-4746. So shoot me a text and I will save you to my phone. And I will tell you the next 2 weeks will be completely insane. I will be running literally nonstop. I will be working all day and all night. The last 2 weeks of session is completely insane. I cannot liken it to anything else. And then after that, I'm going to need at least 3 days to catch my breath. And then after that, my wife and I are expecting our first child. So I'll be a little busy, but I will do my best to get back to you as quick as I can. So thank you for letting me talk. Thank you for everything that you guys do. And I would like to see your voices elevated. I would like to see people start asking, well, where's the Civic League on this? When people start asking questions about legislation on the Hill. And I think we can make that happen. So thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Awesome. So we did have a couple representatives, Mr. Ward and Senator Wheatley also had joined us, but they both dropped off. We have about 10-15 minutes left. I think we can continue with just introducing, and we can discuss internally some of the bills. If you have somebody else join us, we can revert back. I believe was Shema the next person, or did she already go? Okay, go ahead, Shema, if you'd like to introduce some of the bills and we can discuss.
Sure. So I'll introduce Representative.
Pause 1 second. Shema, if you want to introduce yourself as well, because I believe you joined a little bit late. So please tell us what you do for the Civic League.
Sure. My name is Shema Salih, and I am a Civic Engagement Fellow with UMCL. So I do different civic engagement and political and non-political activities with UMCL. Cool. So I'll be introducing Representative Stephen Handy, sorry. He's a Republican member of the House of Representatives, and he's representing District 16, which I believe is the Layton area. And one of the bills that he's working on is HB 123. And this bill directs the Division of Air Quality to conduct a feasibility study regarding the creation of an air quality and changing climate solutions laboratory. So what this bill will do is kind of go into depth to see whether it's even possible to create this laboratory, which will address the elements of air quality in Utah, which is super important to us all, and the climate changes that are happening. So if we do get him on here, I'd love to ask him a couple questions on that. And the other bill, sorry, let me pull that up, is HB 131. He's a sponsor of that bill, along with Wheeler Todd, who is a member of the Democratic House of Representatives. And this bill describes the utility information required and the division's use of that information. So those are his bills. And I'm sure once he gets on here, we can ask him more questions if he does.
Awesome. I will go next. I'm going to, let's pull up my notes here, introduce, well, we had Daniel Thatcher on there. He's doing a lot of bills around criminal justice reform. One of the ones that I did want to draw attention to is the use of facial recognition. That's an important bill that we should all keep an eye on, because I think that also affects our community. As we know, this is well documented that implicit bias is baked into a lot of these systems, not on purpose, but it's just by the nature of implicit bias and the way that this technology invented and developed. And so that's a bill that we should keep an eye on, especially if it passes, on reforming and improving that. Jumping to Luz Escamilla, who is also not a stranger to the Utah Muslim Civic League. Definitely should engage with her and reach out. She represents District 1, and she's been a state senator for 12 years. She's on the Ethics Committee, Health and Human Services Committee, the Judiciary, Law Enforcement, Criminal Justice Committee, and also the Revenue and Taxation Committee. And some of the bills that she is over is, and I'd love to get the perspective of some of our medical professionals, but is the expansion or increase in health insurance coverage for children. And so basically what they're going to do is create a pilot program to educate families and the community on what options there are out there. And they're also going to increase the required or expand the umbrella of who is included in child Medicaid coverage. And then the other couple ones that Senator Escamilla is over are creating a task force for food security. So basically creates a task force and develops a plan for helping people that need access to food. And that's also something that affects our community, and we oftentimes don't realize it. It's also a hard problem to tackle, getting food and resources to the correct people that need it. And then the other bill that we did touch on that I wanted to introduce was about the annual training for peace officers. So this training is supposed to include mental health and other crisis intervention responses and de-escalation training, and also provides that each law enforcement agency or department shall set standards for training to be approved by the director or designee. And so I'm sure Luna and Abid and some of the other team members might have more on this, but those are some of the bills that I wanted to highlight from Luz Escamilla. We do have I did say we do have a comment from Mr. Khalifa if you want to.
Sure, yes. I wanted to ask you who, the last bill that you mentioned, who is the particular author of that, the bill sponsor?
Yeah, I can look that up. I think Luz Escamilla is the chief sponsor of that bill. But if
she's
you
a
give me
floor
second.
sponsor, but who's the bill sponsor? Who's the representative on it? Or was it a Senate bill?
I believe it's Angela Romero, and then Liz is the co-sponsor.
Okay, what's the number of it, please? What's the
The
number
peace
of it?
officer, I think it's HB 0162 if I have it correctly.
Okay, thank you. I'll have to look it up.
Please do. Thank you.
So I kind of want to go over, like, we couldn't hear from two of our representative who came online. As Representative Winder showed us how hard it is at this moment when the voting is going on. I believe we just were joined by Representative Craig Hall, so I'm going to stop talking and move to him.
Hello, everyone. I just unmute myself. Thanks so much for having me. I'm sorry I'm a little late. We've been voting on the floor of the House, and we just finished. So thanks for the invite. Really appreciate it. And I guess I'll just introduce myself briefly. My name is State Representative Craig Hall. I represent part of West Valley. My district goes from about 4,700 south to 3,100 south, and then I go from the Jordan River to about 40th west. So those are my approximate boundaries. I have Granger High School in my district, Westlake Junior High School, and Valley Junior High School. And then there's 4 or 5 elementary schools in that area that are in my legislative district. I have been in the House of Representatives now this is my 9th session. And it's just a wonderful honor representing my friends and neighbors up at the state capitol. So thanks so much for the invite. Luna, am I supposed to open up to questions now, or?
Sure. Representative Abid actually introduced you and your bills while you were not here. We understand that you have a lot going on the floor, so we completely understand. I'm going to ask you a little controversial question and kind of an obvious one coming from our community as well, if you don't mind, and I know you can handle it. You went up against one of the only Muslim running for the House back in the summer and won the elections. What was the process like? You have been a representative for such a long time. You obviously do a great job representing the community, and that's why you were re-elected. But what was the experience like? Did it help you understand the diverse community, or do you feel you already have the handle on that?
Yeah, so I thanks for that question. Really appreciate it. And let me just start off by saying yes. It's I've lived in West Valley for 30 years now. I actually grew up in West Valley, and went to elementary school at the same elementary school my kids go to. So this is it's been great living in West Valley for such a long time, and went to junior high, went to high school there. I did go to school out of state for a little while, and then when I moved back, I ended up buying the same house that I grew up in. My parents were coincidentally moving at the time, so back in, I think it was 2006, I moved back to West Valley, and just wonderful community, and just love being part of West Valley. And that's really why I decided to run, is to keep West Valley a wonderful place to live and to raise a family and to send your kids to school. So that's the main reason why I decided to run, and just love the wonderful diversity that we have in West Valley. That's one of the greatest strengths of West Valley is the diversity that we have. And yeah, you're right, Luna, that I did. Fatima and I ran against each other. She ended up winning the Democratic primary at the end, and Fatima's great, has a wonderful story, and really appreciate her running. And so over the last 9 years, I have continued to learn more and more about different communities. And one great thing, for example, with Luna after the election, I was able to visit the worship center there on what's the address, like 2500 South at Khadijah, and it was a wonderful experience. And thanks to her for helping me learn more, and really appreciate it. Is it open yet, or do they have some?
Yes, on a limited basis.
On a limited basis. That's great. Okay.
They just opened up. We actually have Dr. Salman on the call listening in. He's one of the trustees, and he's the one who's been leading the charge of making sure the mosque is completely safe to come back to, and he has done seminal work in the community. I just want to acknowledge that. And Representative, I do want to acknowledge your openness. It was very hard for our community to see the first person to go up against you, but it was your generosity to make an open call to us and to invite us back into the conversation instead of holding a grudge against the community. So I do really appreciate your openness, and I wanted to highlight that for the entire community.
Yeah, thanks so much. I really appreciate it. And like I said, the city of West Valley is very diverse. We have my kids attend Granger High School, and I think it's about 65 to 70% minority now at Granger High School. A couple of years ago, I think my two boys were literally the only white kids on the soccer team at Granger High School, which is great. So I think that an individual doesn't win elections in West Valley, in the very diverse area of West Valley, without the community recognizing that individual is willing to engage and to learn and to help any community whether they be Hispanic or Muslim or whatever. So yes, I really appreciate the opportunities that I've had to learn more and to engage with all the communities, and look forward to doing that more in the future. So really appreciate that.
If anybody has any questions for Representative, please go ahead. We are almost out of time.
Yeah, real quick, I'd like to reiterate what Luna said. Like, thank you so much for reaching out to us and being, proactive and coming and visiting the mosque. That was a really great gesture for us and our community.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much. And I know that that mosque is the closest one to my legislative district, but I would love to, visit some of the other mosques as well. The other thing that it's so great about that mosque, the Khadijah Mosque, is that I actually I know the architect of that building, Kimley Mangum, and Kimley actually ran against me back in 2012, and we have since then have become friends, and I became aware that he was the architect for that mosque, and we've had some good conversations, and he told me what a great experience it was to be involved in that project. So again, it was such a great opportunity to come and learn and meet new people, and so I really appreciate that and look forward to doing that again in the future.
Thanks a lot, Craig.
And I don't hold grudges. Life is too short for grudges. So and like I said, Fatima is wonderful. She has a great story. It really adds a lot to the community. So really appreciate her efforts as well and everything that she does.
Hi, Representative Hall. My
Hello.
name is Khalifa, and I wanted to, am I on mute?
Nope, you're good.
Okay. I wanted to introduce myself as an advocate for the marginalized communities, the refugee communities. And I just wanted to say, I wanted to ask you, how many more years do you see yourself running?
House right now. So this is, many of you may know or may not know, but the Utah legislature is a part-time gig, right? And it's not a career. It's just something that we're able to do if the other parts of our life can handle it. And so my job, my family situation, all of those things kind of factor into whether I run or don't run. Right now, I'm just happy to be serving as a member of the House of Representatives, and I have another year and 9 months on my current term, and I'm just focused on the current term, and we'll go from there and see what happens in the future.
Okay, thank you.
So I know that's a tough. It's not a very direct answer, but the real answer to that is I don't know. We'll have to see. And like I said, the next election is not for another year and 10 months from now. I'm only 2 months into my current term, so we'll see what the future holds. It's like I said, this is not a career. This is kind of a part-time thing, and we'll see. In a year and 10 months when the next term comes around, if my family and career and kind of lets me do that again. So we'll see. Just don't know.
Awesome. I see one more hand raised, and that'll be our final question or comment. So, Mr. Bate, if you'd like to share your questions or comments for Craig Hall. And then after that, we'll pass it to Avais, maybe to share any final comments, and then Luna as well to close us off. Go ahead, Mr. Bate.
Representative Hall, this is Mohammed. I'm the new elected person to Salt Lake City School Board District 5.
Great.
Yeah, thank you. And you sound like, an honorable and a family man. And, I beg of you on behalf of, students, whether be it in Salt Lake or anywhere here in Utah, any bills, you sponsor. And so look at these faces over here. These are all families. This is what makes America. And any bills that you sponsor. So I beg of you that you consult with the communities. You consult with marginalized communities, and also different cultures. And you will find that there is a wealth of things that we all share. And we may be, of different faith or so, but we find ourselves speaking the same common language at some point. So, and I just want to thank you, and I want to introduce myself, and looking forward to meeting you someday in person.
That's great. Yeah, really appreciate that. And like I said, that's kind of been my motto over the last 9 years as a representative is, making sure that we reach out. Frankly, that's how I win elections. Is I reach out. There's no one that knocks on more doors. There's no one that does more town hall meetings. There's no one that does that reaches out more to the community than I just really put a lot of effort into that. I pride myself in being accessible. If someone wants to email me, I actually return phone calls, I return emails. If someone wants to get a hold of me, then I call them back. I actually call them back. I have one phone. I don't have like a personal phone and a legislative phone. I have one phone. I have one phone number. So if anybody wants to call me, every single one of my campaign mailers has my phone number on it. My email signature line has my phone number on it. If anybody wants to get a hold of me, 801-573-1774. So really pride myself on being accessible. And, one thing that's really important for, I think, everyone to understand is that, it's impossible for all of us to agree on everything, right? But that's okay. We can still interact. We can still have discussions, even if we don't agree on every single item. I don't know about y'all, but I it's just impossible for everyone to agree 100% of the time on 100% of the issues. My wife doesn't even agree with me 100% of the time. I don't know, maybe y'all are better at that than me, but it's just the thing to remember is that we can all continue to have civil dialogues. We can all continue to reach out, and if we don't, frankly, if we agree on things, 75% of the time, we're friends. We're allies. So just really appreciate everyone reaching out and being willing to let me know their thoughts on different bills. One great bill that I saw that I kind of became aware of yesterday is, and this deals with the school board, is there's a bill out there that will let 16 and 17-year-olds vote for school board members. I don't know how you feel about that, but I think it's a great bill. And elected officials, they listen to people who vote for them, right, or against them. And so this is a great bill that will help the school board members actually listen to the students, because those students are potentially, if the bill passes, would then be eligible to vote for or against their school board members. And frankly, the decisions of school board members affect the students as much as anybody else, if not more. So I think that's a great bill as well. So
Thank you for.
Yeah,
Oh.
any other questions? Thank you, Mohammed. Really appreciate it. And yeah, would love to reach out and meet anytime. That'd be great.
We will be reaching out. And if you can repeat your number one more time, is 801-573.
1774.
Awesome. Thank you once again, Representative Craig Hall. We want to be mindful of your time as well. I don't know if anybody else has any comments, questions.
So I just want to make sure that I'm invited to the big, when y'all get together for a big meal, I want to be there for that. Okay.
You're at the top of our list. So,
okay, perfect.
Ramadan is actually coming up here pretty soon. And obviously under the circumstances, gatherings will be limited and whatnot. So, but we usually do have, festivities and dinners and meals going on, iftar dinners. So we'd love to have you join us for that. Absolutely.
Thank you very much. Yeah, look forward to meeting you all. And I know it's, everybody is yearning to get together in big groups. So hopefully that time will come sooner rather than later.
Alrighty. Luna, would you like to?
Thank you, Representative. Honestly, it's been a pleasure to getting to know you. We look forward to engagement in real very soon. We are almost at the end of our session. This will conclude our Muslim Day on the Hill, but I do see Senator Escamilla online, so we will switch to her. Thank you so much, Senator, for joining in. You have been introduced, your bills have been discussed by the community. We just like a chance to interact with you for 2 minutes and then let you do the work that you're elected to do.
Thank you so much, Luna. I apologize. We were on the Senate floor discussing a very heated bill, so I apologize I couldn't get off the floor to join you guys. And again, thank you for always getting together, coming together as a community and speaking up on issues that matter to not only the many communities you represent, but the state as a whole. We need the different voices. I just want to commend all of you being here in a Zoom meeting. Please know that the work of the people is happening, a lot of it virtually. So know that we are probably going to pass the same number of bills like we passed the last couple of years. You're going to see 500 bills coming. I know you probably discussed legislation, but I do want to put a little side note on the fiscal and budget conversation. As a member of Executive Appropriations, which is a leadership team on the budget component, the budget is not looking very well. And I know you've seen some headlines on the media about a $1.5 billion surplus. Let me just be very clear, that's actually a one-time surplus that came out of the influx of stimulus money that the federal government provided. So that money is not here for us to spend because we're probably not going to have it again. We're probably going to see a lot of one-time, mostly infrastructure investments, maybe some roads or transportation issues, but nothing that could be ongoing for programs or services. So I want that to be put on people's minds as we continue to have these last 2 weeks of very, very heated budget conversations. There's only about $225 million ongoing. 58 million are for Medicaid only, as we provided that expansion, and we've seen increase of the Medicaid, communities and families accessing Medicaid during this pandemic. That's problematic and concerning. So know that a lot of things that probably were discussed and even legislation that has passed will not be funded. So that puts us in a very gray area in terms of fiscally how we're moving. We are, for being in the pandemic, we feel our economy is strong, but we are heading towards a recession. And I don't want to be the doomsday of the event and kind of like end on those terms, but I want to make sure that the community is preparing for a recession, hopefully not as bad as the one we faced in 2009 and 2010 with a housing crisis. But we are certainly going to be struggling. The pandemic has hurt our businesses, and it has hurt obviously our communities and disproportionately impacted communities of color, as many of you are aware. So as we continue this next 2 weeks, please keep an eye on budget and the many items that need to be funded in order to provide a healthy community. And I'm being very, proactive in talking about making sure we spend money on healthcare for our families. A child that's not healthy won't be able to attend school, won't be able to succeed. And our families need to know that their kids have access to healthcare in order to go to work and be able to be productive members of society. So I just want to put that out there. Thank you again for the opportunity to talk to you guys for a couple of minutes and appreciate your patience.
Thank you, Senator. And yes, you bring up very, very important point for us. We just want to let you know that your bill around child health, universal child health, is something that we wholeheartedly agree. I also want to let you know very quickly that some of the legislative work that you did in the beginning of COVID-19 for the community health workers, we actually have based on that and that response, we've created a public health committee, which is filled with Muslim, clinicians of various forms and everything. And we're trying very hard to reach our community for COVID vaccination and COVID education. Please keep us included in those conversations and in terms of also investing in our community as far as public health is concerned, because I know you really have your finger on the pulse. And I really thank you for your engagement today.
Thank you again.
Aves, if you would like to close out our virtual part of the event, Muslim Day, and provide a synopsis. Thank you.
Yeah, so first of all, just a sincere thank you to everyone that joined, but primarily for the folks that helped set up the event. Just thinking about it, I would say that UMCL is probably one of the first institutions, if not especially the most developed one, outside of the mosques that has represented our community. And I'm really proud of it because it's an organization. It's not something that's one person like me. And the reason that it's successful is because there's so many people that are taking leadership so that we can do different things, right? And hats off goes to Luna. But I think a big kudos and a big highlight that I want to talk about is our interns, right? So Abid, Abdikader, Omar Khan, Shema, and all of our folks that have got involved and not just got involved, but it's your ideas, it's your thoughts, it's your engagement that's going to be what takes us forward, right? And I think a lot of the organizations where the average age is a lot older and we're not listening to those ideas, that's why they're not going anywhere, because some of those ideas are outdated, they're irrelevant. And thank you guys for, bringing us the newest, greatest ideas. And I hope you know that our door's always open for that. We just don't want you to be here nodding your head. We want to hear your ideas and we will execute on them. Thank you to all of our board members, everybody that helped out on the call and everybody that was vocal on the call. I mean, Brother Mohammed, thank you for today. I've noticed you asked, some great questions and all the engagement, and thanks for being a torchbearer and being the first Muslim in that position. So with that, I'd like to turn time over to Luna and also hear her thoughts on the event and move forward.
I just don't want to hold you. All of you have stayed back for so long for any more than necessary. A sincere gratitude. Please look us up on our website, www.utahmcl.com. There are many ways to engage with us, provide us feedback, help us to represent the community. We've tried to include everyone. It was hard to do all of this virtually, but I think we were able to engage the legislators as well as the community at a successful rate. We look forward to doing this again, and we look forward to staying engaged with our community in any which way possible. This entire day could not have been possible without my team, including Omar Rauf, Omar Khan, Shema, Abid. I owe it to all of you guys. Thank you and see you all soon.